Thank you. All right, I am going to call this meeting to order. This is our budget meeting, our budget workshop. Commissioner Cahill.
Here.
Commissioner Elkin.
Here.
Commissioner Ainworth. Commissioner Goldberg.
Goldberg, Eve, here.
Commissioner, I know, isn't this a great welcome? Commissioner Green. Here. Commissioner Hauser.
Here.
Commissioner Heatherridge. Okay, we haven't gotten on yet. Commissioner Lagos. Here. Commissioner McKenzie. Here. All right. So we are called to order, and two of our colleagues are going to be joining us by Zoom, and they are going to be attending the meeting under the Just Cause exemption of the Brown Act. So we're waiting for them to check in. In the meantime, while I don't want them not to hear, I think this could be a wonderful time for Commissioners Goldberg and Commissioner Green didn't get a chance to introduce herself very, very much last time. So, Commissioner Green, would you like to introduce yourself to the Commission and to the?
I would, and I thought this was going to be next time, so I have nothing prepared, but I'm okay.
We can do it in May or
No.
April.
Next week's
Let's do it now. I'm Brooke Green. I've lived in Cloverdale for 38 years and worked from the library all this time. And I've been involved in different nonprofits and boards of directors, but this is the first time that I'm in the public service position. My most recent job before I retired was the Cloverdale Senior Center. And I'm at Cloverdale, I'm at library, and I'm so far loving being a commissioner.
Wonderful, thank you so much. We may ask you to do a version at the commission meeting as well.
I'll plan something.
Commissioner Goldberg, welcome.
Hi everybody. Really glad to be here. So my name is Eve Goldberg. I'll just follow your format. I live in Santa Rosa and I've lived there for 21 years. I'm from Southern California. And I realized driving over here, I was actually on the board of a different library so many years ago, I forgot about it, in the 1980s and early 90s, called the Southern California Library for Social Studies and Research. It was a progressive little library down in LA, in South LA. And I'm thrilled to be here. I love libraries like you do, and that's why I want to be here and hope to give some service and be of help in some way.
Thanks so much.
Can I draw people's attention to the book that we brought for you this
And
year?
could I ask everyone to speak up as they're...
Yeah. So this was created by the Literacy Department. It is their newest collection of writings from literacy students, and they are having a book release on April 19th at Central Library from 6 to 7 p.m. I would love it if all of you could come. Unfortunately, Chair Doyle and I are going to be speaking to the Windsor City Council that night, so we will not be able to attend, but I've asked Jamie Anderson to attend on my behalf. And I would love it, especially if our Santa Rosa commissioners could be there. It's a really great project, and we want to support the work the Literacy Department does.
This is the second one, is it not? I remember the last. Fourth. Fourth? Oh my goodness. Okay. We'll have to brag about that. Okay. Are there any other announcements? Any public comments? All right, then we will dive into the business. We are talking about our 2023-24 budget, and I just want to thank the staff for such a wonderful presentation. I mean, I think this is going to make our job not easy, but it is certainly going to. We're going to be on the right path. So I will introduce Commissioner Heatherridge and Commissioner Ainworth when you join us. So with that, you all remember And I'll just make sure that new commissioners know that we adopted a strategic plan a couple of years ago. And so we are, the budget is really sort of taking that as a format and moving forward with it. And then we are also mindful that the measure-wide tax increase doesn't last forever. So we're also looking at the future of the library with that in mind. So those are the two major things. And with that, I will hand it over. Erica, do you want to get started?
Good afternoon, library commissioners. I look forward to presenting my first budget, and this is our next year, fiscal year 23-24 budget.
And can I just interrupt? Can everybody hear?
I
don't think she's mic.
I don't think that mic is actually providing any volume to this room.
It's not turned on yet, I apologize.
Thank you.
Is that better? Can you hear me
A
now?
little bit.
All right. Well, I hope, I'll try to speak loud.
Okay, that's better. That's actually better.
So this is my first budget, and I'm very excited to present to you all of the new initiatives that we're working on next year, as well as the progress that we have already made on our reimagining plan. We're currently in year 2, and we are making steady progress toward our goals. Our total budget for fiscal year 23-24 is $51.3 million, the largest budget in the history of Sonoma County Library. I'm going to provide an overview of the big picture goals for the next year, and then each division manager will discuss their budgets in turn. You will have an opportunity to ask questions at the end of every presentation. This budget workshop was a team effort led by our talented CFO, Myrna Lopez, her team in budget and finance, consultant Armando Viramontes, as well as staff from administration and all of the other divisions. I want to give a huge thank you to Ray Hawley for his dedication and work on the slides and presentations. He also helped create some of the graphics that you will see in these presentations. So thank you.
And I think we should do a shout out to the finance committee who has really helped move things along this year too. And thank you, Commissioner Allen, for chairing.
All right, so this year we've actually accomplished quite a bit. We've had our full implementation of Sunday hours. The last fiscal year can be characterized as a year of renewal, reinvention, and planning for future growth. The library returned to a more normal set of operations after the pandemic. We gradually opened up, not only by increasing our hours, but also resuming in-person programming and outreach. This resulted in 3,600 in-person visits, both inside our library branches as well as outside in our outreach efforts. We set the stage for years to come with the completion of our facilities master plan. We launched our Roseland Library Capital Campaign in November 2022, and we completed our staffing study. We have already begun implementing some of the recommendations from the staffing study, including new positions in IT, delivery, human resources, and fund development. Last Sunday, we served 1,938 people, demonstrating the popularity of our Sunday hours. It was our busiest Sunday yet. We also spent much of last year establishing relationships with both new and old community partners, laying the groundwork for some of our goals in the reimagining plan, including a new bilingual pay provision in our MOU, a partnership with the Sonoma County Probation Department to provide library services to incarcerated youth, a reinvigorated relationship with the county over the archives and historical records, and we have begun talks with the Department of Health Services as well as Petaluma People Services on a pilot program to provide resources to unhoused individuals in our libraries. The reimagining plan and Measure Y are the two documents that guide our decision-making at the library. helping to set our priorities in terms of programs, services, facility needs, as well as how they are funded. I will discuss this more in detail during my executive services presentation. So the big picture items for next year include a community engagement division, an innovation fund, and Petaluma and Healdsburg refreshes, and I will discuss each of these in turn. The first new initiative is a community engagement division. Some of you may recall that this division was actually created back in 2017 and was brought to the Commission in April of 2017. And reorganization was brought to the September 2017 Commission meeting. For reasons that I am not aware of, the reorg did not occur, but now the time has come to make this change. Sonoma County Library has almost doubled in size in terms of staffing since we passed Measure Y, and the need has grown for strategic oversight and coordination of system-wide programs, partnerships, and outreach. We have included a new organizational chart in your binder that demonstrates the reporting changes. Events, education initiatives, outreach, and literacy will all shift to this new division. We are proposing 2 new hires for this division, including a new division manager and a teen services administrator. The division manager will create the strategic vision for the department, for its programs, outreach, and partnerships for the entire library system as a whole. The teen services administrator will oversee teen services as well as the volunteer program, and their work will complement the work done by adult services and children's services. This position was also a key goal in our reimagining plan to help empower youth development and lifelong learning. As you will see from the community engagement presentation, we have also added funds for a volunteer management platform. And that will be a program that we will use to track our volunteers, the hours they work, etc. But I also want to stress that the responsibility for programming and outreach will not rest solely in this new division. Branch staff will still provide weekly programs and conduct outreach, and the Community Engagement Division Manager will work closely with the Public Services team to ensure that our operations are in alignment with our strategy. The creation of this new division does impact the Public Services Division. Some of their budget has been shifted, but it will transform how we provide services. This reorganization will allow Public Services Division managers to focus on branch-specific needs, such as creating a comprehensive branch manager manual and training program, improving our security protocols and responses, streamlining operations in the branches, and improving their capacity for mentorship and guidance to staff in our largest library division. Our next new initiative is what we're calling the Innovation Fund. And the purpose of this is to provide an internal grant funding opportunity to support, expand, and improve the programs at Sonoma County Library and incentivize creativity among the staff. This will also provide leadership opportunities for frontline staff who will propose, pitch, and implement these initiatives. The grants will range from $5,000 to $25,000 with $100,000 total funding. We will have a committee that will be composed of library staff, foundation board members, and community partners who will develop an application, assess the proposals, and award funds. The focus for these grants will be on services that are inventive, that are sustainable beyond the initial grant funding period, that are replicable in other library branches, and have measurable outcomes. Some examples of things that might be funded through this kind of initiative could be a tool lending library. We have staff in our facilities division who would love to see this happen, that we could lend tools out to the public, and something akin to our E Street Studios, which is currently only available in Santa Rosa due to PEG funding. So those are the kinds of things that we might consider funding as part of an innovation fund. And lastly, we have our 2 major branch refreshes starting next year. The first is the Petaluma refresh. This is a major renovation and includes accessibility as well as modernization and creating more natural light in the location. And that's slated to start in fall of 2023. The city has received the first portion of their grant funds, and we will continue to provide library service to Petaluma residents from a temporary location while the renovations take place. Our second major refresh is the Healdsburg Library, and this project will include new windows along Piper Street, a new circulation desk, a more inviting entry, all new shelving and furnishings, and the first modern gender-neutral restrooms in our library system. So all of the interior work will be paid for using Measure Y funds, and the exterior work will be covered through a partnership with the city. We are working with Healdsburg City staff to submit a state grant that can pay for the HVAC and ADA upgrades. This concludes my presentation. Are there any questions?
Commissioner Busy. Did you have your hand up?
I did,
Okay.
but I was reading and then listening and then watching. I have a few questions. One is, I think the community engagement division is a great idea. I had a note here on the volunteer services. We're not talking about having any adult volunteer services, right? Are we all still just talking about teen volunteers?
No, it would be covering adult as well as teen
Do you
volunteers.
have any adults? I didn't really get an opportunity to hear about volunteers.
Well, all of our friends in the library are considered volunteers,
Okay,
and we also have literacy volunteers.
okay. So will there be enrollment in there with the friends? I mean, or is it just kind of the staff versus the administration?
You know, that's yet to be decided. But I can imagine there would be, and the public services division managers will still be the liaison to their branch labs and friends groups. But they will coordinate, so the two public service division managers and the new community engagement, they will work very closely together.
That sounds like a great idea. Under the innovation funds, when the grants are awarded, does money go to staff for bonuses or something? Is this all used in materials and?
It will all be for services and supplies.
And then, how about the city of Healdsburg does not get the grant for the HVAC?
We will continue with our original plan, which I think was about $2.4 million that we were going to set aside.
For the library that later on the one projects. And thank you very much.
Other questions? How long are the Petaluma and the Healdsburg projects going to last?
Well, Petaluma will start in the fall, and I think it's 9 months is what we're planning. Healdsburg, that's probably not going to start until the second part of the fiscal year, and it will go over two fiscal years. So we'll start probably next March, April, sometime next year, and then we'll go into fiscal year 24-25. If there's no more questions, I'm going to turn it over to CFO Lopez, who's going to provide an overview of our budget in greater detail.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I am happy to present the fiscal year 23-24 proposed budget. The reimagining plan sets the priorities for the fiscal year 24 budget, and the important elements that were incorporated in formulating the budget include the following: a steady major revenue sources, the Measure Y ordinance and expenditure plan with the ongoing implementation of the allocation of major revenue policy, fiscal efficiencies, in which applying best practices by evaluating costs and adjusting budgets to better reflect the expenditures, specifically under benefits and services and supplies. Together, this helps close the operating deficit under the property tax fund. A new community engagement division and ongoing Sunday hours at 11 branches, including Central for all 12 branches. And the Sunday hours are made possible by Measure Y. A new budget procedure for capital expenditures for better financial reporting, and incorporating fiscal year 24 in the 5-year forecast. We need to continue to be mindful of external factors that can impact our revenues and overall operations, such as economic conditions. While some economic indicators continue to look healthy, economic reports have stated that the economy will grow at a slower pace than in the last few years. It is important to remain watchful of financial markets and stay nimble in order to respond to any uncertain times. Natural disasters. Most recently, we've experienced a very heavy rain season, and we need to remain mindful of possible wildfires. In addition, with COVID-19 variants, we still need to monitor illness as it impacts employee absences. State and federal leaves have expired, and employees and employers are left with their traditional time off. The library will continue to monitor economic indicators and revenues very closely in the upcoming months. The key highlights of the budget are the total appropriations or expenditures of approximately $51.3 million. This includes 231.35 full-time equivalent positions. It includes 3 new employees under community engagement, one shared with public services, and a position under human resources. Altogether, this represents over 300 people. It includes $2.5 million in new revenue and a new community engagement division, and after review of expenditure trends, found savings to close the operating deficit. The next slide shows the components of the revenues and expenditures. So I'll explain the columns across the top. These are our funds that we rely on, which is property tax, sales tax, and our gifts and donations, the total proposed budget. And we have the adjusted approved budget, and then the variance of the 2 fiscal years. Under property tax, the total revenue of all sources is $26.6 million. And on the expenditure side of non-capital expenditures, we have $26.6 million. So as you can see, the revenues cover the expenditures by a small margin. Therefore, there is no need to tap the fund balance to cover operating expenditures under the property tax fund.
Chair Doyle, Commissioners Angbar and, let's see, Evan Ridge was there, but Commissioner Angbar has now joined, and so
Welcome.
ask those questions.
You're on page 80 of 161, Commissioner Angbar.
And then Commissioner Angbar and Commissioner Heavenridge, is there anybody in the room with you that's over 18 years of age?
No, there is not. This is Commissioner Heavenridge.
And no, there's no one in here with me. Good.
Okay, thank you. Welcome.
And again, both Commissioner Angbar and Heaven Ridge are joining us under the Just Cause exemption of the Brown Act.
So we're under the property tax, the total expenditures with capital is $27.5 million. And down here, it shows the total use of committed fund balance is $1.4 million. This is the use of committed funds from the fund balance as allowed by the fund balance policy for maintenance and repair, for facilities and IT, and the capital improvement program. Under the sales tax, the total revenue of all sources is $16.7 million. And on the expenditure side, non-capital expenditures total is $15.8 million. The revenue is greater than the total non-capital operating expenditures. Therefore, there is a net positive impact replenishment to the fund balance. Total use of committed fund balance is $8.1 million. This is the use of committed funds from the fund balance as allowed by the fund balance policy for maintenance and repair for facilities and IT and the capital improvement program. Under the gifts and donations fund, we have $150,000 in total revenue, and corresponding.
Hi, Lisa, thank you for sending that.
Oh, you're welcome. Just so you know, you have to be on your video the whole time under this just cause exemption.
Okay, I'll let you know because I gotta go to hemodialysis and then I'll get back on in a few minutes. Okay, I do. You have to look at my pretty face then.
Okay.
Okay, bye.
He's muted. Sorry about that. It's my fault.
Mr. Haveridge, can you mute yourself?
He's muted.
Is he?
I'm muted. It's my fault. I apologize.
No worries. All right. So sorry, continue.
And under the gifts and donations, there is no use of a fund balance. Whoa, I sped through that. No use of fund balance. And the total budget is $51,288,530. And the total use of committed fund balance is $9,621,506. So where does our funding go? It goes to people, places, and resources. The lion's share goes to people, salaries and benefits of $28.4 million or 55% of the budget. Under resources, services and supplies, and the contingency fund is $14.2 million for 28%. Places are our branch refreshes and other capital projects for a total of $8.62 million or 17%, for a total of approximately $51.3 million. How is this budget allocated among divisions? Most of the funds go to the following: public services, 33%, facilities, 26%, collections, 13%, information technology, 10%. Those are the top ones, over 10%. But I do want to show that the new community engagement and literacy division is 5% of that budget. Funding dedicated to the branches is 78% of the operating budget. This includes 66% that goes towards public services and community engagement, and 12% for the supporting services, which are facilities, IT, collections, and communications, for a total of 78%. The administration represents 22% of the operating budget, and that includes executive services, budget and accounting, and human resources. On the FTE side, about 211 FTE, or 91% of our FTE, go directly to the branches or the supporting services. funding sources are property tax, sales tax, gifts and donations, and our fund balance. The total funding sources are $53.2 million when we use the fund balance of $9.6 million. You can see property tax is 49% of these funding sources, followed by sales tax of 31%, and our fund balance 18%. Some very small percentages are the intergovernmental funds, which are grants and our PEG funds and donations. Another important component of the budget is the allocation of major revenue sources policy. The policy calls for calculating the property tax and sales tax as a percentage of the total tax revenue. Rounded, property tax is 60% and sales tax is 40%. The 60-40 ratio is applied to all expenditures under these service-oriented divisions, except for Sunday hours. Sunday hours are allocated 100% to Measure Y. When Measure Y went before the voters, expanded hours on weekends was identified as an important measure of increasing access to libraries. Here are the allocations of these expenditures. So for the service-oriented divisions, expenditures are allocated 60% to property tax and 40% to sales tax. Under administration divisions, expenditures are allocated 90% to property tax and 10% to sales tax. There are exceptions to these allocations. Like I mentioned, Sunday hours is allocated 100% to Measure Y. And workers' comp, retiree reimbursement, the OPEB trust payment, and the contingency fund support the entire workforce and are allocated 60% to property tax and 40% to sales tax. Because they also cannot be allocated to one specific division. I like to share this type of information in a graph. And so this graph illustrates the allocations just previously discussed. The fund balance is an accumulation of over years of budget surpluses. The budget balance policy, the fund balance policy provides direction on how these funds can be used. In fiscal year 24, the estimated available fund balance under property tax is $7.9 million, and under sales tax, it's approximately $9.6 million, for a grand total of $17.5 million. This is after fully funding the stabilization fund and the committed funds for IT, facilities, and the multi-year capital improvement fund. I'd like to give you a preview of the 5-year forecast. The goals of the forecast are to understand the 5-year trend with baseline revenues and expenditures. And this graph here is an example. The green shows the expenditures. The green shows the revenues of the library, and the yellow show the total expenditures. Just so you know, this here does not show the capital expenditures. Capital will be included in other slides when the forecast is complete. Additionally, the forecast is to ascertain revenue growth in order to make informed decisions about the best use of revenue and the fund balance to strengthen library operations. The full forecast will be presented to the Finance Committee in May. In summary, the budget goals are to sustain the Sunday hours at all branch library locations made possible by Measure Y, an elimination of the operations deficit under Property Tax Fund, the creation of the new Community Engagement Division, launching a new innovation fund within the library, create a contingency fund, implementation of a new capital fund budget procedures and increased reporting for information technology, resources, and facilities, and the ongoing implementation of the allocation of major revenue sources policy. This concludes my overview of the budget. The division presentations are next, starting with executive services and director's report.
Any questions?
Thanks. Mayor, thanks very much for the overview, really appreciate it. And I have to apologize because of my travels. I didn't have as much time to study this as I would have liked to, but I'm going to ask you if you could go back to the slide on page 80 that has the proposed budget summary. Yeah, that's the one, yeah. And I've, this is my ignorance, I think, but I see in the first block about 6 lines down, total all revenues. So in the first column, for property tax, it's 26.696 million.
It's 26.049. This one here?
Yeah, the where it says total all
total,
revenue,
yes.
that 26,696,123.
Yes.
And I see that we're also applying the use of committed fund balance.
Yes.
I'm struggling, I guess, to see how revenues and fund balance equal expenditures, or maybe they don't have to, but.
So what happens is you'll see the total, these offset some of the expenditures. So the total use of committed fund, no, the capital improvement program of 862,000
Right.
offsets this capital of 862,000. So
Right.
that does equal. Under maintenance and repair, of the services and supplies, this 600, a portion of it is for facilities and a portion of it is for IT, for maintenance and repair, and it offsets the 9 million of services and supplies by 600.
Okay, that makes sense to me, but here's where I guess I'm struggling. When I look at total all revenues, and I add total use of committed fund balance, that total is not the same as total expenditure.
That's correct. So the total revenues, use of fund balance is not a revenue. It's a funding source.
Right.
So what is here is all the revenues. We are expecting 26 million under property tax, about 400,000 under governmental, 100,000 under other, 90 under donations, for a total of 26.6 million. So those are revenues. In addition to that, we're supplementing our revenues by 1.4 million by tapping into the fund balance and those committed funds that we have in the fund balance.
So that would say to me that we're going to end up with a surplus.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner McKenzie?
Are you done with your presentation?
Yes.
Do you know when we're gonna be talking about page 22? Which is on the capital budget request.
Yes, we could speak to that in under facilities
Okay.
or at the end of all of the division presentations.
Any other questions? Okay.
hello again. I'm going to be presenting along with our Fund Development Manager, Craig Palmer. We will be discussing the Executive Services budget. You will notice there is some repetition here from the director's overview, so where that happens, I will try to be brief. Okay, so the Executive Services is 6 individuals. Myself, the library director, I have the overall responsibility for strategic direction of the library system of 15 locations, over 300 employees, serving 486,000 people countywide. We have a vacant position for the deputy director. We are recruiting. Interviews are starting this Friday, so we're hoping to have a deputy director before the end of the fiscal year. And that position is responsible for the operational management of our services to the public. We also have Craig Palmer, our fund development manager, and he is responsible for raising private funds to supplement our public revenues. And we are all supported by 3 amazing administrative specialists, Jaylene Demapan, Lisa Davison, and Suzanne Axtell, who provide complex administrative support to the director, deputy director, library commission, and fund development manager. So last year, we have some major accomplishments. Sunday hours at our regional libraries. This is probably our biggest accomplishment. We are very fortunate that we are in the envious position of growing our library system. We not only survived the pandemic, but we thrived, and we owe all of this to the vision set out for us in the reimagining plan and due to the tax dollars of Measure Y. The full implementation of Sunday hours began in November 2022, and this was assisted by the teamwork of several library departments, most notably Human Resources, Public Services, IT, and Facilities, who worked together to recruit, hire, and train 18+ new library staff and give them the tools and resources they need to do their jobs. We also hired a consultant to conduct the library's portion of the needs assessment for the new Roseland Regional Library. And as we head into next year and into the design phase, we're getting that much closer to realizing a decades-long dream of a new library in Roseland. With the help of the foundation, we helped secure a $3.5 million gift from the Federated Indians of Great Rancheria. And we also hired an administrative specialist in fund development to track major gifts and coordinate grant funds and reporting. Now I'm going to turn to Craig, who is going to discuss the fund development goals for next year.
Erica, thank you. Commissioner, Chair Doyle, Commissioners, thank you for your time this afternoon. I'm delighted to bring a report of some strategically valuable progress in this year. I'm more delighted to bring a report that was achieved. These accomplishments were earned by a really energized collaboration of foundation board members, senior staff, a team I was very inspired to be part of. Cornerstone of the year was the creation that we all had part in of a 3-year comprehensive plan to raise $3.6 million that's needed to provide the collection, furniture, foundation, and equipment for the new Roseland Library. That plan also, though, specifies activities that allow the foundation to build bench strength, to build its structural strength, so that it can sustain that kind of fundraising in the years ahead to address things that we've identified in things like the facilities master plan and the ADA assessment. The board, this was a thrilling moment, the board of the foundation adopted that plan with a unanimous vote. And they haven't stopped since. It's just all I can tell you. It's very exhilarating to be part of it, to see what they're doing. The goal of the first year is $770,000. They're about halfway through that goal right now, and they have some serious strategies in place to hopefully reach that goal by the end of this year. I want to just remind you.
Calendar year or fiscal year?
Fiscal year.
Thank you.
Thank you. Last year, the foundation raised $69,000. This year, they're going to raise approximately $770,000. So that's progress. As you all know, because you were there and you helped make it possible, they launched their campaign at a major event in November, announcing a challenge match of $100,000 for gifts received by December 31st. By mid-December, that goal had already been exceeded. And so the board voted to match all gifts received by December 31st, and that number came to $150,000 of new gifts. Now, what was extraordinary about that, we keep track of the numbers, the analytics are as much fun as the numbers. Those were driven by a lot of new donors and giving at much higher levels than the foundation has experienced in the past. Importantly, because of this great activity going on in our donor base and wanting to be very good about it, we successfully installed the foundation's first comprehensive donor management software program, Boomerang it's called, which allows us, we had to all of us get together and do a little work to clean up the foundation's list and their donor list and whatnot. All of that has been successfully uploaded. So now we can employ more advanced fundraising techniques to more optimize the giving potential of every single donor. Our goal is with every donor to reach their optimum giving level, but sometimes it's called the transformative gifts. The foundation also recognizes that this goal level of $770,000, next year it's going to be $1.1 million, is going to require a much deeper pool of high-value prospects than it currently has. And to do that, it has just energetically set about recruiting a lot of well-known households and donors and leaders in the philanthropic community that you all know, to hold house parties, to host us at events, to get us out into the community where we can talk one-on-one and build personal relationships with high-value donors throughout the county. So what are the goals for this next year? The campaign, the 3-year campaign is $3.6 million. We're looking at getting to 770 in this first year. The goal for next year is $1,100,000 real dollars. The goal also for this coming year is also to continue building this bench strength. It is an equal priority for the foundation board. If they're going to be able to sustain this fundraising level, they know they need to build the board, and they are going about doing it, I think, in a very strong way. They have an impending planning retreat that they are facilitating and designed themselves, specifically to identify ways that can become stronger, structurally, and more self-reliant going forward. That's for the foundation in the coming year. Now, what about the library itself? All the successes we have with the foundation, we're now going to apply those same things to the library. We will adapt the private sector fundraising in the library into Boomerang so we can do the same thing. We can get into some good analytics, but most importantly, in the library side of this, with these techniques that we're doing, all of which are good, basic, sound best practices, is to also build a program that develops as a grants management program. So we can more strategically manage the grants and gifts we have now, but also start to do research and look out on the horizon. We know there's much more money there if we can proactively go out and get it, and we can build that program to do it. So that's the report of successes this year and our goals for next year. I can take questions now or later or whatever you'd like, but thank you very much.
Is that a hand up?
Just a bit of clarification about applying that Boomerang for libraries. So we're talking about the building part of the 21st century building. It's also going to be under the foundation.
Right.
And what would be the funding that, what would we be raising money for the library?
Well, the library, as you see, already has had success in developing its own grants. And by putting the development material information into Boomerang, number one, we can strategically better manage what we used to call in other situations a grant status report. In other words, grants are pending, they need reports to do it, all the rest of it. But we can then use as a basis to go out and research other grants in that same area to develop new grant prospects.
So grants only, basically, for operations.
Right.
Okay.
Dale? Thank you, Karen.
All right, so what's new for us this year? Our focus is going to be on expanding our programming, partnerships, and outreach capacity. We've already begun this with the City of Santa Rosa as we partner with them on the Roseland Regional Library campaign. We're also working with our other JPA partner agencies to identify infrastructure improvements to be made at all of our facilities. And we hope to secure additional grant funds through the state library. As the library successfully navigated through the pandemic, we have been increasing the number of in-person programs and outreach. Next year, we will continue that and expand it with this new community engagement division and through our innovation fund, which I have spoken about previously. So as you can see, the executive services department is small. We are 6 total staff. And most of the funds that come out of our department are towards building leases. We will see that there is a difference in the funding for last year and in this next fiscal year. And that's because we've transferred some funds from HR, primarily legal fees, into executive services. So all the legal fees will come out of executive services. We're also, as Craig was talking about, we're looking to hire a consultant who will help us research other non-library related grant opportunities. We have increased staff development funds for the department, and we've also set aside funds for a community survey to help us determine the level of support our communities have for the library and its services. And then lastly, we have our innovation fund, which is a new expense from last year. As a library director, I'm making community engagement a personal goal of mine to increase visibility of the library throughout the county, to educate our residents on how their tax dollars are being spent, and to develop new partnerships for the years ahead. I've already begun this work, speaking at Verena in Fountain Grove, presenting to the Healdsburg City Council with Commissioner Elkind, and facilitating a discussion on the history of Mary Ellen Pleasant at Beltane Ranch for our Black History Month program. I have future speaking engagements scheduled tomorrow at the Roanoke Park Chamber of Commerce. And then Chair Doyle and I are speaking at the Windsor City Council next week. And then in June, I will be speaking at the Santa Rosa Rotary Club. So in addition to raising visibility for the library, these efforts will also help the foundation with its fundraising goals and will strengthen our relationships with all of our partners to provide cutting-edge programs and services and set priorities for our capital improvement plan. I hope that you will approve all of these exciting new initiatives as part of our total budget package. Any questions for executive services?
Does the budget for the upcoming year include the salary and benefits for the deputy director?
Yes.
Great. Thank you.
See no other questions? Oh.
Yes, thank you for this presentation. I like that forward looking and the positivity of all of it. I think it is a very positive picture presenting. On page, what's new for this year? Anyway, it says lease negotiations with several JPA partners in support of grant funds for the capital improvement plan. So that's a worthy goal, obviously, and I know that we've expanded our assistance and our encouragement to all the partners to try to get the money that only a couple libraries got the first round, right? So, but we are also talking about lease negotiations just in general, right, for the facilities, for the jurisdictions that we don't have leases.
That's correct.
More than this, it's actually getting leases in place.
Right, that is correct, but we're kind of using the grant opportunity as the incentive to have those negotiations, because those grant funds are contingent upon having a lease that is 10 years beyond the life of the grant. There are no further questions, then I will, Meredith's going to come up and she will present on the Budget and Finance Department.
As the Chief Financial Officer, I am also the manager of the Budget, Accounting, and Financial Services team. Who we are and what we do. The accounting and payroll team strive to provide the best customer service to the Sonoma County Library staff and patrons. The charge of the Budget, Accounting, and Financial Services Division is the oversight of all financial activities, accounting, purchasing, auditing, payroll, and financial reporting. to develop the annual budget, direct forecasts of revenues and expenditures, develop the implementation of policies and procedures to manage all funds, including Measure Y, and provide staff support for the Commission, Finance Committee, and the Commission, and Measure Y Oversight Committee. The accounting and payroll team has been working diligently in planning and implementing systems that support the best practices and continued excellence in our work. These are highlights of what we have accomplished in the last several months in the accounting procedures and support of Commission's priorities. In the first year, this is the first year that we implemented the allocation of major revenue source policy. We've now established an annual fiscal mid-year review. We reconciled all Friends Group's balances and created a tracking and reporting process going forward. We've automated and clarified the purchasing and patron reimbursement procedures for the library staff, and delivered the Pension 101 presentations with CalPERS at the Finance Committee, and kicked off the 5-year forecast. What is new in this year, we have recently filled the accountant position as a priority for our team. We have promoted within to fill the accounting coordinator position, and a new senior account clerk starts later this month. As discussed earlier in the transmittal memo, there is a new procedure in how capital projects are budgeted. This will improve tracking capital projects, budgets, and the status of these projects. This is a collaborative effort with IT and facilities. We have 6 staff. There is no capital expenditures in this division, and resources are allocated for accounting resources to remain on schedule with financial requirements. As always, the budget, accounting, and financial system services is guided by the reimagining plan. To this end, our division, we continue to exercise fiscally sound policies and procedures to support and finance the important goals of the reimagining plan, such as to provide opportunities for learning, supporting community resiliency, and fostering racial equity and inclusion. In terms of Measure Y, as part of the division accomplishments, we've implemented the allocation policy to ensure that the allocation of expenditures embodied in Measure Y. In addition, I continue to monitor this policy and provide regular financial updates to the Measure Y Oversight Committee. Any questions?
Thank you. And to those of you who are new on the commission or on staff, this is almost breathtaking, the advances that we have made in our accounting procedures. And once again, thank you so much for all that you have done for us on board. In particular, the allocation of major revenue sources. What that means is what gets charged to Measure Y, our sales tax measure that we worked so hard to pass. And it was blurry in the past, it wasn't clear, now it's clear and it's spelled out, and it's just a huge advancement in how we keep our records and in how we report to the public. So I can't say it enough how much I appreciate all that you've done and all you've brought forward. I'm really glad that we're going to have the 5-year forecast to talk about some more, because I'm sure you've all noticed we have very significant uncommitted fund balance, and it's growing, it's very large. What are we gonna do with that? You know, what do we do? Pay down PERS more? I mean, there's lots of things that we can do with that money, but we are going to plan for it coming up soon. So I'm really happy about that. I did want to ask you just one thing under the resources, which is pretty large amount of money there. $556,000. I'm gathering that as a lot of consultant money in there. I'm wondering if it's we're still working with the county and how we're paying the county to help us with our reporting still, and what else might be in that.
Under resources, this is our annual audit. We do also cover office supplies, for example, for the entire agency. Just systematic wise, all office supplies, most office supplies that are just pencils, paper, not paper, pencils, you know, staples, those kinds of things are in this budget. Other major items, yes, we do continue to work with the county. They help us with our financial statements, preparing for the annual audit. In doing that, they work with us throughout the year in preparing our financials. So we do work with them very closely to ensure that we're collaborating like we do with the county. They do serve as our treasurer, and we do utilize their financial systems.
So we're keeping that relationship going.
Yes, for now.
All right, great, thank you. Appreciate it.
Myrna, I have a question. Between current year and the coming year, basically the budget's flat. Shifted a little bit, a little more to resources and less to people. How are you able to do that?
So as I've done last year, what I've done over the last 2 years is try to refine our benefits. And when I came on in November of 21, that was fiscal year 21-22. The library had not had a CFO for a while, and formulating the budget took I think that year the county actually formulated the budget for the library for fiscal year 21-22. So they did their best, and they overestimated benefits. And as you recall, there was several $1 million in savings at the end of the year in benefits. That was at this end of fiscal year 22. So when I developed fiscal year 22-23, I'm still seeing a savings, a surplus in benefits. And over the year, as you know, in presenting our pension costs to the finance committee, I've observed and evaluated that our current budget, and through our monthly reports, that there is still quite a bit of savings in the benefits. So in fiscal year 23-24, my attempt was to further better estimate those benefits. And so across the board, in the memo, it does state that there's over $800,000 savings across the board in benefits due to both pension and health benefits that I'm trying to better estimate. And so those savings have helped us with the closing of the deficit under property tax. And so these are the things that I am still committed to doing on an ongoing basis. It's important to review our costs to ensure that our budget is we have to make sure that our budget covers our actual costs, but that we're not overstating our budget unnecessarily.
Right, this is great, but so the figure that we're seeing for people, this reflects your department being fully staffed now?
It is fully staffed, fully funded.
So with your new accounting manager, new accountant, accounting coordinator,
yes,
all those positions filled.
Yes. Thank you very much to the commission for your support on that to ensure that the work gets done and we're in compliance with all of our requirements.
Fantastic, thank you.
Mr. Housen, you're a magician.
Yeah.
I truly really am proud and humbled and just honored to serve the Sonoma County Library. The team, all the division managers and staff and the budget and accounting team are just wonderful to work with. They are very passionate about their work, and I'm very fortunate. Oh, I'm sorry, I got all excited. So I'll introduce the next speaker is Suzanne Silva, the Manager of Human Resources.
Not sure how to come up after that. Thank you very much, Commissioners. I'm Suzanne Silva, Human Resources Manager. I'm certainly happy to be here today. So Human Resources, we're a very exciting team of 6 staff right now, and and you know, I was looking through this presentation. It's very inclusive, but I realized that we do recruiting, hiring, and we do all this full service for the entire library system. We we recruit, we hire, promote for the staff. We monitor personnel transactions, including performance evaluations, classifications, specifications. We do staff and management training, benefits, open enrollment, administrations of leaves and absences, as well as the return to work programs, ensure a safe workplace by taking care of the workers' comp and insurance renewals. And then I was like, oh, I left out a huge thing here. What about negotiations and employee investigations? It's like, well, that's because my team doesn't do those, I do those, but I'm part of the team. So anyway, we do a lot. We do a lot in HR, and I'm really proud of the work that we've been doing this past year with my colleagues and my team over here. So, but it sounds like a lot of people are going to be talking about the Sunday hours because they were really important, and we really wanted them. I came on when Measure Y was first adopted, and it was like Sunday hours, and so it was finally like, here we are with Sunday hours. It took a lot of work for everybody to do that, and so this past year we did get those Sunday hours going in all the branches, and while it sounds like only 18 positions, it was a lot of work to coordinate 18 positions, where they went, and not only was it 18 positions, when we fill 18 positions, we do what's called a transfer request. So who wants to move from which library to what library? And before we open up the doors for new people, we let all the internal people move around, and that creates gaps in filling. So that was really a great process. So that 18 positions that was filled created a backlog all around the system, and that was fun for everybody. And so not only with the Sunday hours, our team also screened almost 800 applications. We conducted up to 200 interviews, hired from outside the system, over 50 employees by this time, and then with those transfers and also promotions, closer to these numbers are a couple of weeks old, so almost and by the end of the fiscal year, 100 people will have promoted or transferred throughout the system. So that's just for recruiting and onboarding. We had an employee who had an opportunity to move out of the area, so he was a trainer, and that gave us an opportunity to look within and how is our orientation process going? Are we doing, we're not involving other people within the departments to help us and make it a better onboarding and orientation process? So we've looked at some of the gaps and made it a better opportunity. We started looking at, we just hired shelvers, or started utilizing shelvers a couple years ago, and what were some of those, or were there repetitive motion injuries, or what is happening within the system? So looking at ergonomic evaluations, and could we revise some of our processes or equipments to make things better and reduce workers' comp claims, and just make processes better. So there's been a lot happening in this past fiscal year. And really just, having one person less, we revised one of our classifications, and we're making it a senior HR analyst. We're in the process of doing that recruitment right now, so hopefully that'll be filled within the next week or two, so that when I take the vacation, I have got somebody to step in and help out. So other things that we've done, let's see. This year we had, we trained all of our staff on social justice and equity from a vendor who was specialized in public library social justice training, Mia Henry. So we trained all staff in a 5-part training, and she also did 3 Zoom meetings too to help us and solidify the concepts that we were learning. And that's great because that training we're also having available to us through October of this year. So we're using it in our onboarding and new hire training to have new staff take that as well. We also work with public services to make sure that staff receive de-escalation training. So that was really implementing those system-wide trainings is a very onerous task. It's super important that we make sure that our staff gets all of that training. So additional things, a very big one is that we negotiated the bilingual pay side letter so that we could provide services to more services to our staff in the community, so that staff that are on the translations team and doing extra outreach in the community receive that $1 an hour pay for all those hours that they're doing that extra service. So that's really critical, and that took a lot of time, even though we approved it in the MOU, to actually implement it. And even though it didn't cost a lot of money, getting it just right took a lot of time to get it right with the staff. So it's really critical in implementing that part of our reimagining plan. We are a little over halfway done with our classification and compensation study. We've finalizing the classifications, and now the consultant is out there measuring the compensation variables. So we should hopefully be wrapping that up. Probably, I'm hoping in the summer. Sometimes the longest part of these studies is when you start negotiating the final implementation with the union. So that's to stay tuned with that. And we've closed our bid with our diversity consultants. We received 19 submissions, so the racial equity team is going through the first round of evaluating the bids that we received. So hopefully we'll get our consultant approved and started with that very soon. And this year was the second time we did this in an on-site Zoom-based staff day. So that was very big and took a lot of collaboration from all the branches. So that is also where we had our first Zoom-related discussion from the Justice at Work training. And just to let you know, I know it's a lot of, I know you're all volunteers and very busy, but should any of you find the interest in wanting to take that training, it's available for any of you commissioners as well until August. So just reach out to me and I can help you connect to that. Close here. What we're doing this year is, we're always going to be providing more training on implicit bias and microaggressions. We're very interested in, racial equity, and that's one of my big causes here, big, goals and passions. I'm working with the others in public services to develop an internship program. We've received a grant, and we're working on having interns for lunch at the library. So we still got a couple little hiccups to work through with the union, but we're moving along on that. I'll be reviewing policies through the racial equity lens, and just continuing to provide staff development opportunities and training. We have 7 staff and we're fully staffed. Right now I have 2 extra help employees. We don't have any capital expenses, and one of the resources that we're hoping to implement to help us be more efficient is a upgraded human resources information system. So basically that's helping us automate a lot of our processes to make us be more efficient in terms of performance evaluations and just tracking people and training and everything. So and this year we will move to an in-person staff day, so we'll all be together and in the same building. So that's exciting, that for the first time since 2019. And like I said, increase our operational efficiencies through the implementation of a new platform. And we're also in the process of redesigning our careers webpage. So that is all I have. Yes, Mr.
Did I blank or I missed page 112. Could you bring us back there, please?
I have my pages numbered, but maybe.
That's the one.
It's the one with the budget.
Oh, yeah, I probably didn't go into too much detail. We don't have any capital expenses for HR.
Right, it looks like you're adding a staff person.
Oh, yes, adding a staff person.
And what will their area of responsibility be?
So the person that I'm adding is, I reclassified my senior, my HR analyst when the trainer left, and we approved that a couple of months ago to a senior. The goal is that person will be an assistant HR specialist, basically, and it will help not only that senior HR analyst, but will other areas of the department as we go through and implement this revised system. Because the transfer of data, and then just other things that will be required in upgrade and maintenance of the system. And also, when I hire that person, I will anticipate automatically losing one of my extra help, and then the goal will be to eventually all the extra help.
So would it be fair to say that the major difference between the coming year and the current year is the addition of this person?
The staff?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And just to clarify, this position is actually been on the books, it's just been unfunded. So we are funding it this year, so.
It's a good thing. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And the software will make a
The software will make a difference.
Yes, thank you. Your presentation, Suzanne. I thought I'd mentioned that you said when you came on board, it was all about Sunday hours. When you came on board, we didn't even have Monday hours.
That's true.
So we at least had to hire for Mondays.
That's
which is
true.
a big deal. Secondly, I'm really, I love internships. I'm happy to hear you talk about that, and perhaps you can give us more when that gets up and running. That's a wonderful opportunity for people to get involved in the library.
Yes.
And thirdly, I thought for the new folks, you might mention the MOU and, because you talked about negotiations, but where we are with the MOU.
Sure. Well, first off, since you asked about the internship, so we received a grant, and I think that Public Services will be talking about that more later. Okay. So just because of the fact that we've been wanting to do structured internships, we did one a few years ago with PLA. And so basically just trying to provide opportunities for people. And so because people would come and say like, hi, I'd like to be an intern, it's not a very good opportunity where you can't put a program out there so that you can involve the most interaction with schools and the community. So we want something that would obviously expand our racial equity goals and goals for the community. So that's what this is through this grant. And then as we get that solidified, we can roll it out again for subsequent years. So that is where this program is. With the MOU, we negotiated an MOU that was retroactive to January of 22, and it will be good through December 31st of 2024. So the only thing that supposedly really changed was that we did this bilingual side letter and a couple of other small things, and the goal was every year. We'll keep finding little things keep creeping up. And then what was your third question?
I just thought everybody should know that we're basically in the middle of a 3-year MOU and give you an opportunity so that it expires.
There's lots of opportunities for me and confers along the way. So I spend a lot of time doing those things, which is why I'm needing to fill my positions. And then, yes, having a new human resources information system will help us keep track and run reports and have a lot more of our things automated, which when I started here, we didn't even have that as any type of system. So we've kind of outgrown our existing system.
Just so you know, next week at the regular commission meeting, we will talk about the grant, so we will be accepting the grant. And then the HRS system, we're still gathering data, and so we will bring that to the commission for approval once we have all of our information. Right?
Yes.
And I may have missed this, one more question about the internship. It's not for library students, it's for.
Right, it's not for library students, it's for lunch at the library. Yes.
But we hope to have internships for library students.
Right.
And the University of Wisconsin contacted me recently, and I said maybe next year.
Okay, good, because, yes.
Yeah, I'm always,
That's a good thing.
whenever we can get our departments or even college students who maybe do not necessarily want to be librarians, but maybe facilities or IT, or that's my goal, is to just build people's.
And Mr. Palmer might get you some more money to do.
Yes, exactly, so, yes. Is there anything else I can help you or answer for you
Any
today?
other questions? I don't see him up on the screen. Okay, thanks very much, Suzanne.
Okay, well, now I will introduce, we're introducing you, Dave Tasheva, the facilities delivery team.
Thank you, Suzanne. Hello, Madam Chair, Commissioners. I'm Dave Tasheva, the Facilities Manager. I'm honored to be here to present this budget. Here we are. Facilities Division has 5 staff members. Senior building mechanic, several building mechanic 2s, and a building mechanic 1. Our Delivery Services Division has 9 total staff, 4 permanent drivers, and extra help support staff. What we do. We do so much. It's, I have to take a little breath. Okay, so we're focused on the efficient and effective delivery of logistics and other support services related to our 16 library facilities. Our work ensures functionality, comfort, safety, and efficiency of the built environment by integrating people, places, processes, and technology. Modern public buildings are a complex set of incoherent systems. Interconnected.
You gave that to us. I want to make sure we were paying attention.
By keeping our buildings at peak public efficiency, we provide safe and comfortable environments with clean water, sanitary sewers, efficient storm drains, abundant electricity and data, heating and cooling, clean air, and much more. We proactively address concerns about the climate crisis, resource consumption, and occupant health and safety. This not only gives us a greater purpose, but also a larger obligation. We provide these services 24/7. Delivery. Delivery services is a fundamental component of our library system. It involves a wide range of transport, sorting, and distribution of library and other materials. We specialize in delivering these materials from the point of origin or storage to their landing destination point as efficiently as possible. Most of what we deliver supports cold items for patrons and much more. So I'm going to go off my page a little bit. So delivery is also working on a centralized storage system. So they'll be bringing like holiday books, stuff like that we don't need in the browsables all year round from a central location as each location needs them. What have we done? Next commission meeting, I have a huge presentation on this, so I look forward to that. Delivery. For some reason, this slide is not on my. Excuse me. Did I go backwards? Yes. Okay. Excuse me. What's new this year? People. We're finding better ways to help our locations with the creation of small projects team. This allows us to provide the support needed while priorities pivot and evolve. Bringing on a project manager will improve our efficiency and deliver any size project. Places. By collaborating with our JPA partners, we manage the potential impact of decisions on the divisions of space, services, cost, and risk. Investing in sustainable future by providing dedicated funding ensures a welcoming, cost-effective environment for staff to feel comfortable and supported, as they in turn support our library patrons. Resources. We have major refresh projects in progress at Petaluma and Hillsborough. We will be starting the design and planning phases for Central and History, Genealogy, and Rankin Valley. Other large projects include lighting controls for Dorner Park. Many more smaller projects. Additionally, the capital improvement plan will guide us through the next 5 calendar years as the ADA transition plan prioritizes accessible barriers that we continue to address. So, we have 15 people, like I said. Our budget has increased because we added an FTE. In delivery, we added 1 more full-time driver. We have many capital improvement projects, so that budget is increasing as well. All of the capital expenditures come from facilities and IT. So the rest of the divisions don't have those expenses, so they're all on us. And resources are basically the fund balances of resources. We have other contracted services that we use, and we're going to contract for project management. That's the big request as far as resources go for me this next coming fiscal year. Reimagining plan and measure why. We center accessibility and quality as a part of our planning process. With a dedicated and devoted support services staff, we are able to support every library location and transform new and old spaces to suit our ever-growing needs. In summary, we will continue making capital improvements that increase the safety of staff and patrons. Thank you.
So Dave, you're adding another driver, but there's not much difference between the proposed next year budget. Is that because of the benefit savings that Bjorn has not incurred yet? Yes. Okay.
Exactly. That's exactly why.
Okay. Well, great. Thank you.
So that enables us to have 4 independent routes, which gets the materials to the location before staff arrive so that they can do their work and not have to wait for the delivery.
And that's great. My second question is, it looks like you're decreasing the allocation for resources by something over $300,000. Where are you making those cuts?
Right. So we found efficiencies in last year's budget. Karen and I worked diligently to come up with those savings. Those savings are going directly, probably, to paying for the new division.
Paying for the
new division, contributing to supporting that.
But can you say a little more about what aspects?
So we underspent. We're underspending several budget line items.
Oh, okay.
In our supplies and services.
Great. Thank you.
I also want to add that the delivery driver was actually reallocated. It was a position that was in correction services, but we moved it to delivery. So it's not a new position, it's a new position for them, but we just are reallocated.
Okay.
Commissioner Green, you have a question?
Yes, I'm not sure this is the right time to ask, but I'm looking back on page 22 about the total projects for the next fiscal year. And for Procreal, I believe there's a patio project. And I'm just wondering how I can keep up to date on the latest information.
Okay. Well, we have a base camp for that project. We give updates at commission meetings. I give an update every time my commission report. And then, of course, you can email Erica and I, include me in the email, and ask us directly.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I have 4 little questions and then a big question.
Okay.
My little questions,
Could you speak up, Barbara, because you're facing in that direction, so some of us.
Yeah, we can't hear you.
Oh, okay, well,
And the 2 of us
I'll just
have
to watch my
hearing
back of my
issues.
head.
Okay.
Question 2, Dave.
Thank you.
Yes, central storage that you mentioned, a new central storage thing, will we have to lease any more space for that?
No, this is using existing space.
Good, okay, just checking. And that would be over at headquarters?
No.
Where would that be?
That'd be in the old facilities space at Central.
Like down in your basement?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, interesting, okay, thank you. And then number 2, let's see, oh, it mentions in here enhanced outdoor spaces, can you tell us which libraries that would include, and whether it would include Roanoke Park or not? Because I wanted to make some comments about that.
Okay, so far in the works, we have a patio project in Cloverdale,
Right.
and we are discussing potential projects similar to that in Northwest. Recently, we just issued out an RFQ for architectural services, and so we start filtering out, who these consultants can be for us. We'll start thinking of more projects that they can do.
Okay, well, I'd like to please ask for Roanoke Park to be included. We have beautiful and totally underused patio area that's definitely needs some gussing up and cover.
Yes,
Thank
we
you.
want to maximize the use of all our outdoor spaces.
Yeah. And then 3, we're talking about gender neutral bathrooms. I just want to mention, I went to the opening of the new Stevenson renovation over at Sonoma State University. And their gender neutral bathrooms, what they did was they took the women's bathrooms that had multiple, people going in there and converted them to gender neutral, which is a really creepy situation. And I wondered if our gender neutral bathrooms are individual or one individual use or not.
So they're single occupancy?
Yes, that's what I meant to say. They are?
They are.
Okay, perfect.
With the exception of the family restroom that we are proposing in Petaluma. But that would be one family at a time. Gotcha.
All right, thanks. Now, my big question goes back to page 22, which I referenced earlier when I was asking our CFO about this. So you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we have our master facilities plan, right? And I was not able to see any priority listing in here, like who goes first and what projects, what library gets refreshed in order. I don't see it in here. And we never talk about it as a commission. We just find out about it. And I think that's a weakness in our, the way we're dealing with this. On this particular page, I see that we're talking about $2.2 million for Ringgold Valley, $5 million for Central, and $1.5 million for H&G. Now, the H&G library building is owned by the library system, so I can kind of understand that. In our facilities master plan, when we're talking about Santa Rosa, this plan still referenced the fact that the central library may have to be completely redone in a different place, because that might still be redeveloped. That area might be redeveloped by the city, but if not, but suddenly we're seeing $5 million allocated to that, and we're not part of this discussion, and I just, again, I need to be able, we are a governing body for the whole library system, but we are also individual representatives by our appointing jurisdictions, and so I wouldn't be able to say back to the Roanoke Park City Council nor anybody else, well, this is what to expect about our library because we're part of the discussion. So another point is, again, back to the leases, and I appreciate your comments earlier, Erica, but the point of leases, and those of us who spent years on the leases and bylaws committee, the point was to get lease standards, and so everybody had a lease, and so all the jurisdictions knew what they were responsible for and what the library was responsible for. And we've been caught up in prior situations where some jurisdictions have had to pay for repairs and other jurisdictions have not had to because there's no lease. And so, we have to move forward, and I know that you recognize this, and we were talking about at least 5 administrations who have tried to get leases, and we can't get there. And so it's very frustrating to me to see the next 2 projects as well as the Roseland thing. So that's 3 Santa Rosa projects in a priority situation here without having really any other discussion about possibly any other jurisdiction being involved in this. So there's something missing here. And so if we approve this budget, we are indirectly approving this project order. But I think that we need to talk about it or find out why it's happening in this order.
So the request for this budget is actually only $350,000 for Central, but the $5 million is a placeholder
right in
the budget, and I'm thrilled that you bringing this topic up because this goes hand in hand with something that Mira and I are working on. She's doing a 5-year projection. To complement that, we'll have a 5-year capital improvement plan that we'll all have to be discussing. So in order to get this budget rolling, I had to put a guesstimate on what I thought Central would cost using our facilities master plan. That's just a fraction of the cost it was saying. We've had a stakeholder meeting with the city of Santa Rosa about investing in that building, whether that is prudent or not. And they said any investment at this point would be a good investment because they have no plans for the future for that building. All plans that they did have are scrapped.
And if we have a lease with them, the lease will tie their hands. They will not be able to, kick us out or, decide that they, so that's part of the reason for these lease negotiations is that any investment that we make in this building, the lease will protect us. We've also, talked to them about the grants and they are applying for Central Library. So, we have a lot of balls in the air.
Commissioner Kagan.
Yeah, Dave, I'm thrilled to hear that the plans for the building are scrapped. It seems that there's an irresistible temptation to use our site as a possible development project. I always thought it was fancy. And is the state been put through the heart of the project?
Excuse me?
Has the state been to the heart of the
well, that's what this, according to the city manager, yes.
Okay. She's the one who put it out. So I'm really thrilled. One less problem. We don't have to try to figure out how to build a new something in terms of
So I'm asking for $350,000 to reimagine Central. So the total cost is just a ballpark.
I'd like to make a comment, David. I don't think we have to come up with a plan for a new central library. I think Santa Rosa has to do it if they want to kick us out. And that's the attitude I think the administration is taking right now. We're not playing hardball, but we're playing, if you want Roseland, we need 4 leases.
And the two major players originally in the joint powers agreement, the city of Santa Rosa and the county of Sonoma. And so chances are we're going to be able to work something out. It's going to be painful and it's going to take a while. And we also will be talking about which branches are next, and frankly, a lot of that depends on what kind of funds can be raised in those local communities and which ones are committed. And so if someone becomes committed very early on, then, they're next.
Yeah, well, is that a new rule then? If, so you can bump, see this, again, this order didn't come from us. It didn't come from our master facilities plan.
It actually came from the ADA transition plan.
Okay, so then we should have a piece of paper in here that says the ADA transition plan seems this is the order of our facilities. But right now, again, we have a multiple city and county jurisdictional governing agreement, and we have in the pipeline three major projects, or 3 Santa Rosa libraries, right?
Those projects span over, the central project is going to plan for 2 years. It's too big to, this is why we need this capital improvement plan alongside this, so it really will explain the process, because what Mira and I have discovered is that this board will give us a bunch of money to do a project that takes longer than that fiscal year, and then we're looking like we're not spending all the money. So
I understand that, but I'm talking about the priority. Who comes first? I mean, Windsor has a little tiny library, and Sebastopol is always, bulging at the seams. And, like, why aren't they in line? I mean, who decides this? Again, maybe we haven't had a discussion about it.
So the reason, the JPA partners provide the building, and what we've been saying in our fund development is that we need a lead gift. So, Windsor has been one of the most cooperative partners in the JPA in terms of these issues, and that's something that Deborah and I have been talking to them about when we talk to them. They need to provide the building, and we cannot come up with, the majority of the funds for that. We're raising $3.6 million for Roseland through the foundation, but, the majority of the money for that is coming from other government sources, either through, the ARPA funds that the city of Santa Rosa set aside, the PG&E funds, state grants. So, it really is going to be incumbent upon the JPA cities to find this.
Okay, but I still can't get back to like the priority setting, right? Healdsburg is in the works for years, as we know. Healdsburg has been, on the priority for a couple of years. But what's next is Rincon Valley. Well, again, who decided that? And then Central, $5 million. Now I understand that out of this, we're going to do a very limited request, first year request, but we're still putting aside a significant amount of money in this order, as I understand it, for these libraries, right? And so, to Deborah's point, if the city of Windsor said, they had a donor who's going to put up, X millions of dollars, we're bumping ahead of that. I mean, we need a process. We need that. We're not going to use this as the priority setting. Who comes first? Because we're not using, because it doesn't have a priority list in it.
Well, they're all components to creating a list.
Okay, but this list
Right.
just appears before us.
It's based on the ADA transition plan in need.
So I'd just like to add, if I may, hopefully this clarifies. I think what we can do is provide some additional information to describe what the total request is, and the total request for the fiscal year. The new request is $3.4 million, and that represents all those projects on the list. And I can tell you right now, orally, that most of this is design. So a lot of this is going into the design phase. Design phase for these projects, yes, but this doesn't, when we have a design, that doesn't necessarily mean say, okay, Central's going to be next. We do need these design information so that we need the ADA transition plan, and then we can make some prioritization. We do want to set a course to address. I think this would address most of our sites. Right? Sebastopol has had some improvements recently.
That was years ago.
Well, they're also getting, so they have grant funds from the state, and they're putting in a heat pump and some solar panels. So they got their funding, and they're making those improvements. Petaluma, part of their funding is coming from the state grant.
And the state grant was a huge factor too, because we wanted to get projects in work that could help provide contributing funds.
Well, I think what I'm trying to say is it's kind of fragmented and it's not clear, it's not organized, it doesn't, I think you've mentioned you're going to do a presentation, which would be great, Dave, but I have asked for this, what's been done, branch by branch, building by building, who paid for it, and where are they? And instead, we start seeing these kinds of commitments, because this is a commitment. Well, the city of Santa Rosa, as far as I know, hasn't put up multiple millions of dollars, and yet they're next in line. How did that happen? Well, now we find out it's because of the ADA plan. But see, we don't know any of this stuff. It isn't all spelled out really clearly.
I agree with you, Commissioner McKenzie. The library does not have a comprehensive, well-developed capital improvement program. There's a lot to be done there. And it's part of the growing pains of the library. Before Measure Y, there was no this extent of investment was non-existent. And so and when Measure Y came on board, there was no foresight in putting in place the steps and the infrastructure needed, the structures, the systems needed to roll out a capital improvement program. Same thing with the Measure Y expenditures. There were no systems in place to how to allocate the Measure Y funds. And so we've done part of the Measure Y. How do we allocate Measure Y funds? Great improvement, I agree. I believe this is the next area for improvement on systems, on decision-making, on prioritization. So I wholeheartedly agree with you. Haven't had the bandwidth to do it, but I am committed to work with Dave and Erica to start working on what looks like a cohesive capital improvement program. You're identifying all of those areas that need improvement.
Well, thank you. I thank you for hearing what I have to say. I mean, and understanding what I'm saying, because again, we're joint powers, all equal parties. Everybody's equal. Everybody gets attention. Everybody needs to be in order. Everybody needs to have their needs met. And, you know, we haven't had that. But my concern is in this budget, by committing these millions of dollars to Rincon Valley and to Central, I can't see those being replaced by new plans. Can you? I mean,
I think the word committed is too strong of a word. What has been committed to Central, for example, is $350,000 for a design. The remaining that you hear there is an estimate of what it would cost for our imagination of what it could be, of what this $350,000 might give us in a design. We think that it might cost us $5 million, but we don't know. This is just the facilities manager's best effort to start fleshing out this capital improvement program. We have a facilities plan. We have an ADA transition plan. All good steps. I think you're right. We do need a more comprehensive way so that you all can prioritize, and not only that, but that we can communicate our capital improvement program.
and that's in part also back to the foundation, trying to raise money, not just for Roseland. That's the first step, but it's a 21st century library system, right? And so when the donors are asked, they maybe not want to donate for this or that library, but they want to donate for another library. We need to have a priority system in place to know where we're going, and we don't have that. I mean, would it be inappropriate to allocate $350,000 for every jurisdiction for planning purposes? I mean, you know, why are we going down this lane? Because
well, there is something in terms of capacity.
I know, but still.
But I mean, that's a good suggestion.
But I also want to point out that some of these projects have other fund sources. So the Philadelphia project has funds from a donor. So, you know, this doesn't include all of the funding sources for these projects. Petaluma, you know, the Friends of the Library giving money, the city of Petaluma is contributing money. So, you know, this is not the complete picture of all of these projects. It's just what we are kind of setting aside for the next fiscal year to do these design phase projects.
Right. But that's, again, what I've asked for is a report that shows all the libraries, what's been done, who's paid what, and all that. And I think that's part of this clarity thing. But again, I just as long, if we pass this budget in a couple of months, the implication here of who comes next, it seems to be implied here that two more Santa Rosa libraries come next.
I believe they said it is placeholder, and so I think moving forward, we can, as the year progresses, we will certainly have additional information. I think we're going to take a short break here. I'm going to ask to take a short break. We'll be back in 5 minutes. How about that?
10 minutes.
How about 10
3 o'clock.
4.5? How about
The San
Thank you. Did you get one of your?
Thank you for that.
all of the moving parts and the friends, you know, just, jurisdiction that we had, this is the first time, all of the licenses. Now in your case, but we have to own that, and the dog has been in that neighborhood for years. And I've seen that before, I've given tons of detail here. Little things are important. But this is a new thing that we're doing. So say, oh, it's gonna be the ADA thing, which we did. We didn't adopt it as it's like it is. We adopted it. So actually, it's just another factor, we just don't have. This is all massive.
It's my pleasure to introduce Mike Daw, our IT manager. Good afternoon, commissioners. I'm Mike Daw, I'm the Information Technology Library manager. I'll talk a little louder, I apologize. The library, today I have the privilege of talking to you about the IT's budget priorities for the fiscal year 2024. It's quite apropos that I go after Dave Sheva and facilities crew. Our teams work very closely together. We do similar work in different manners. We support all of the other projects. Our projects support all the other projects and efforts for the libraries to provide a service to the public. So who are we? Well, we're 12 hardworking individuals with a variety of tenures with the library ranging from less than 1 year to over 30 years. A lot of breadth of knowledge and history, as I just heard Barbara mention a couple of minutes ago. Myself, I'll be with the library 20 years on the 7th. Within our group, we have a wide range of specialities, ranging from our new staff trainer, recently hired, all the way to network administration and everything in the middle.
And law.
What?
And law.
Yes. And we cover a lot of ground, both figuratively and geographically in what we support. First off, we support the fiber optic network that provides internet connectivity and network communications through all the branches of the provider services. We provide functionalities and support for over 3,000 devices ranging from printers and peripherals to computers, Macs, PCs, A&H, video boxes as we're rolling them out. We also maintain the library system for circulation, cataloging, and searching that provides our materials transactions for not only Sonoma County, but Lake and Mendocino counties as well. We, of course, support the Sonoma 5 hotspot program with over 1,200 devices, which provide a core service for our communities. 2 websites under our belts, as well as the mobile app and all the remote authentication for our e-resources for the public. And as people have come back to the library, we've also, this past year, had over 415,000 Wi-Fi sessions from the public, which is double from the previous year. One of the key things that show how many people are starting to come back to the library and use our services. specifically what we've done. Just recently, we launched our Vernville's BiblioBox automated book locker. Jonathan Ridley from Facilities standing there, who was a key person in rolling it out. Later this spring, we're launching 2 more at both Healdsburg and Reagan Valley libraries, and more to come, of course. With grant funding, 2 separate grants, we are modernizing the Wi-Fi in all of our buildings. Will be done later this spring, mid-May. Of course, we've added 2 new team members this year, both focusing on very key roles in the IT department. We've revitalized our Sonoma lending program by leveraging a new Verizon contract, which dramatically decreases per line costs for each of our hotspots. We'll get to where that ties into the budget later. It also removes data caps for our users. And we've recently purchased over 450 devices to replenish what we've lost over the course of the pandemic and general wear and tear. Also launching a new website soon. In May, we'll publicly debut the next Sonoma Library's public website. You'll all get a preview at the May meeting, days before it's launched to the public. We're working on network redundancy throughout our buildings to make sure that we stay the continuity of service. We don't drop our internet, network, or phone connections. Speaking of phones, with all this stuff going on, we're also rolling out a new cloud-hosted phone system for the county library system. So what's new in 2024? We're focusing on adding network stability by investing in our core network switches and architecture. We're adding laptop lending devices. We're working on the flexibility in our buildings with our capital projects so that you're not relegated to a specific place in the library to use our public computers. You can check out a laptop and sit where you're comfortable. Speaking of comfort and expanding how we lend and have access to our materials, we're expanding our biblio boxes. So for people that are on the go, coming home late, they can pick up their books from the lockers without having to come into the buildings. We're also investing in new self-check devices as part of our equipment replacement cycles. When we get to resources, we're going to soon be launching this spring or next year a feature-rich notification system for holds, overdues, that type of thing, for email, phone, and SMS. Continuing enhancements on our public catalog and public websites, as well as beginning monthly audio-video classes to learn how to capture your special moments using our camera lending libraries. In IT, we have 12 people, 2 of which are new. This year, we're seeing investments driving up the cost of our capital purchases. Again, that's with our computer servers, network equipment, the large, over $5,000 investments. And we found efficiencies that have allowed us to lower the cost that we're spending on our resources while still maintaining the ILS, the website, hotspot lending, computer software licensing. Of course, the reimagining plan to measure why. We really live in IT and providing opportunities for all to learn, contribute, interact, and participate. Expanding technology and connectivity for information access. Considering capital investments in the context of evolving community needs. This picture right here is a good example of that. Sonoma goes beyond just hotspots. We also provide network kits so that we can create internet access for large groups off-site where they may be needing access. Jessica Hoover, one of our librarian threes from Central Santa Rosa right here, is doing such a visit where she can field questions, offer services, wherever people might be not relegated to our buildings. And with that, it's my pleasure. I'm happy to field any questions you may have for me.
Questions from us? Barbara?
Could you give us, do you have a schedule for the bibliobox implementation throughout the branches?
Not fully yet. We're starting those in line with how we are doing our refreshes and our remodeling. Thus, we have Guerneville got theirs not quite in time with their refresh, but soon after. We have Healdsburg in preparation for theirs. Rincon Valley has the perfect location for it with that nice overhang. Petaluma will be online after that with their refresh. And beyond that, we will continue to roll them out, but we have fixed the roll outside.
This is going to be connected to the capital improvement plan.
Absolutely, 100%.
Because again, if somebody asked me when we weren't going to get it, well, we're not scheduled for any refresh, and so it's hard to.
Could you speak up?
Get it. Pardon me?
Could you speak up?
It's so awkward because, yeah, technology genius, it's not really hard to address you and talk to everybody here. No, I said it's difficult if you don't have if you're not online for a refresh, it's difficult to answer anybody in your community when you're gonna get the book things. That's what we're connecting the biblio boxes to, is refreshes.
I will say to that Myrna, Erica, and I are working on plans so that we can create partnerships with the vendor to buy more than just for the refreshes. So I would like to put these biblio boxes at all the libraries within the next couple of years, whereas the refreshes are going to expand up beyond that. So I imagine within the next 3 years or so, every library will have a biblio box.
Within 3 years?
I think within about 3 years, yes.
Yeah, regardless of a refresh.
Right,
and then when we get to that refresh, the nice thing about that is with Healdsburg, for example, when we're going to be closing the library down, we'll still allow holds pickup. They won't even need to come into the building. They can come and pick up their holds on their schedules. And we'd like to do that ahead of that game. And so for our part, same thing, we would get that at this branch prior to that.
Right, but see, we don't have anything scheduled with us.
Well, you'll get something before that.
I thought in the original conversations about the biblio boxes, we were also thinking about putting them not at libraries, but putting them where people didn't have access as much to libraries.
Absolutely.
So that's the next phase?
We have opportunities to not only do biblio boxes, but what are called 24-hour libraries and whole full lending kiosks. We have opportunities in far west county and Bodega Bay, for example, would be something we could look at. We have our rural stations, like Forestville's off the highway out there. So we could put something in this, on that center of town, so to speak. Burner Park, Cotati, it's 2 separate towns. We have an opportunity, maybe we can put something in Cotati so that they have coverage there. These are the beginning, but they're not the end of this. In IT, we're focusing on expanding how we're delivering services that expand beyond our buildings, whether those be the boxes, full lending, and also like vending machines, say at the airport. Go and scan your library card, grab a book, and away you go. We're looking at all kinds of different ways to get our materials and services out.
Thank you very much. Mr. Elkins.
I think it's great to hear that, Mike, and I love the idea. I'm just curious, what kind of initial response are you seeing to the biblio box?
Sonoma's had close to 2,000 holds on it on a regular basis. They have about half of the lockers full, or in use, I should say.
Yeah.
Guerneville's was just rolled out a couple of weeks ago, and it's going to a little bit of a slower roll. So it's going to pick up over time, I think.
Okay, and you mentioned you have 2 new folks. I assume those are folks who are filling existing positions?
No, actually.
There's new positions.
So,
Can you talk a little bit about this?
Sure. We have a new IT technician one in Juan Romero. And one of the reasons why we're able to find the efficiencies with the hotspot program is that's his core responsibility. So bringing him on board allows him to just dig in and dive in, and he's been wonderful. And then we recently, when Kyle left from HR, that position was reallocated to IT. We brought on a trainer. So for those that have been around for a while, we may remember Denise Lewis, and she did the Horizon training and so much more. And so that's what Justin's role is as he's expanding. He's doing onboarding training for circulation services, and also down the road, he's going to be doing technology training as well, as we are rolling out so many different types of things for staff.
Well, I think that's great, and again, I'm noticing that this is becoming just a wonderful theme, that you're essentially flat, actually a little bit lower in your budget request for coming here. So we salute you and your team for everything you're accomplishing. Thank you.
Yeah. I have to ask my question, but I didn't get to give you one compliment. I think all of our departments, everybody in the library is just fantastic. I think that there were extra responsibilities on technology during COVID. And you guys kept the library alive and going and functioning. And I just appreciate so much everything that you guys constantly do. We're never down. It always works. And it's just fantastic. So thank you.
A lot of pride in making sure things are working.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, I would love to introduce Ray Holly.
Good afternoon, Ray Holly, Communications Manager. So the Communications Division provides a lot of services to the library. Our job is to support the rest of the staff in engaging the community about the benefits, the impacts, and the magic of the libraries. Our communication team tells our library story to the world. A key way we do that is to act as in-house consultants and advisors in marketing, public affairs, advocacy, public information, graphics, video, signage, branding, advertising, and other support to library staff and library supporters. This includes newspaper and radio ads, posters, brochures, media relations, email newsletters, social media, and signs and banner programs. When you walk into the library and you see all those colorful pieces of paper and signs and banners, we had our hands on almost all of those. We also handle all primary press outreach, and we're all experienced communicators. We know how to work with media and help reporters do their jobs. We handle the primary system social media accounts, plus our extensive email marketing program. Our graphic designers are professional creative artists with decades of experience. Really, we help our community appreciate the power of libraries. In addition to all aspects of marketing, our team is part of the library's voice in the media, local government meetings, and anywhere we need to be to represent the interests of the library and the community. We're deeply committed, as is the rest of the staff, to equity and access. And whenever we can, we assist and support library teams in programming that are focused on equity, equity, diversity, and inclusion. Let's make that into 3 words. So what we've done, we're really a work in progress. There's some examples of some of the graphics that we do out there. But we create branding standards for the library as well as style guides that cover all forms of written and visual communication. We also look outward, and our team plays a key role in how we work with our local government partners on funding issues, advocacy, and more. This year, our team will continue to support every aspect of library services. There's really little we don't touch, from payroll forms to new service branding, outdoor banners to fundraising. Consistent and effective signage is a strong recommendation that came out of our facilities master plan, and we will continue work on that this coming year. This year, we will also find time to incorporate video into our marketing and better utilize that powerful tool to tell the library story. We're also reaching out, learning, and being humble as we continually work to make our communications more accessible, more effective, more inclusive. While we use library funds for signage, printing, advertising, and other forms of communication, our strength is our team of professional designers, marketers, and writers. A key point about our team is that we are all dedicated to the library as a system. For us, the Sonoma County Library is not a loose affiliation of 16 independent facilities. We're a single library system with 16 locations. And in that context, we can and do help staff one-on-one. Any staff member who wants to work with a professional writer, a marketer, or graphic designer is welcome. We're here to make everyone else's job easier. In this coming fiscal year, our proposed budget totals $981,616, 2% short of $1 million. And we spend those funds on people and marketing tools. Key expense categories for us include advertising, signage, and printing. For us, the reimagining plan and Measure Y are intertwined. Community-informed communications and marketing are key to our success, and it goes beyond being a radio station or designing a clever logo, although we do that too. The communications team is committed to the promises of Measure Y sales tax and the reimagining plan. Our messaging is welcoming by design, inclusive by intention, and we want everyone to picture themselves at our libraries. Any questions? Comments?
I'm willing to wait if anybody else does. First of all, I love the graphic. I love auto. I love the graphic for the open on Sundays and the whole thing. That's on a small but important point, and also the new library card. I would like to say, again, with historical perspective, we used to have nobody doing marketing. And so you go someplace and talk to somebody and they go, oh, we have blah, blah, blah. You're kidding, I didn't know you had that. And with you joining the library and adding and creating a team here, and of course we had a couple of very talented graphic people before you, but we built this into a whole team that's really made a significant difference in the outreach to the community in general. And I applaud you and your team. I think it's just marvelous. I think all the work that is beautiful and professional, and you support the Friends. I know the advertising for the Friends book sales and everything related to the library. It's just very, very impressive. And thank you. And I only have one question, which is new this year, trilingual marketing special. What's the third language?
Our new person speaks English, Spanish, and Mandarin.
In Mandarin? Well, thank you. Thanks to all of you and your team.
Any other questions? It's my pleasure to introduce co-acting Deputy Director and Collection Services Division Manager, Jamie Anderson.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Jamie Anderson, Collection Services Division Manager, and I'll be sharing.
I'm sorry, can you speak up a little bit or use the mic? I can't hear you.
Is this any better?
A little bit.
All right, I'll speak up. So Jamie Anderson, Collection Services Division Manager, and moving right into who we are and what we do. So the collection we provide to the community, as you know, is a primary core service of the public library. It's still one of the main reasons that people come to the library to visit us. The Collection Services Division has 20 staff, and they are responsible for selecting, ordering, cataloging, and processing a diverse collection for our community to check out and enjoy. Our collection supports all ages and all formats. So just by way of example, for a popular bestseller, we would be purchasing numerous copies of the book, large print. If there's a graphic novel version, we would be purchasing that, the audiobook on CD, the ebook, and the e-audiobook at a minimum. So that's a lot of formats, same title. In addition, we purchase movies, music, newspapers, video games, research databases, streaming platforms, And we have a very large Spanish bilingual collection, as well as other world languages represented in our collection. And part of our collection is our special collections and our digital collections. They contain materials of local interest and historic value. We also offer a service called Link Plus for materials not available in our collection. Patrons can request materials from up to 70 other libraries in the state. So some accomplishments from this year that I would like to highlight. The first image there on the bottom left, we reached a record-breaking 1 million digital checkouts in Libby by Overdrive in 2022. The Libby collection, if you're not familiar, is ebooks, e-audiobooks, and digital magazines. So we were really excited to reach this milestone and celebrate it. Our digital checkouts continue to grow. We saw exponential growth throughout the pandemic, and they are continuing to increase. They currently represent about 1/3 of our overall circulation for the library system. The middle image there is the logo for the California State Library Parks Passes. This is a partnership with the California State Library and California State Parks. So if you haven't checked out one of these passes yet, make sure you put a hold on one so you can grab one. It gives you access to over 200 participating state parks. This program was developed to advance safe and equitable outdoor access for all Californians. And passes are available at all of our libraries. We have several hundred of them. And the third image on the right there, Freegal, is a streaming music service that we added this past year with over 15 million songs. Freegal comes with unlimited streaming access, so it's similar to Spotify if you're familiar with that, and the ability to download 3 songs per week. These are just a few examples. There are many others. One other accomplishment I'd like to mention is a large donation that we received this year from Sonoma Media Investments. They approached us about taking the Press Democrats photo negative archives, consisting of thousands of negatives, as well as their local sports photos. So we were really proud to partner with our local newspaper in this way, and especially pleased that they thought to come to us when considering where to donate these materials. So we've taken possession of these materials, and they are now in our historical archives offsite location. So for what's new this year, people, we are maintaining our current staffing levels. So this is a status quo. We have 20 staff, as I mentioned. And as has been discussed earlier in the presentation, this year we shifted one of our positions to the delivery department, and that is why you'll see on our personnel budget, when we get to that slide next, a slight decrease in that fund. For places, we are seeing kind of an explosive growth with manga books the last couple of years. They're really growing in popularity. So we're planning to expand this collection in both English and Spanish. And we've recently pulled them out as sort of a discrete format separate from graphic novels, and we'll be highlighting them for easier browsing in the libraries. And then for resources, most of our budget is, of course, the collection and the materials budget. So we will be sustaining checkout limits and growth in Hoopla, Libby, and Canopy. Those are our 3 most popular digital platforms. The ebooks and e-audiobooks, as I've talked about with commissioners before, they continue to cost more than physical materials, and the cost keeps growing. It just keeps increasing year after year. So to give you an idea, a popular bestseller title might cost $28, $29 in hardback. We would be paying $90 to $130 to get that same title in digital format for the library. So this is a different costing model than what consumers experience when they're purchasing these kinds of materials. So the big part of our budget goes to that. We'll continue to maintain a 4-to-1 ratio for holds to copies. Maintaining a ratio this low is something that we've only been able to do since the passage of Measure Y. Prior years, we've had a ratio of 6-to-1 or 7-to-1. So this ratio basically ensures that patrons don't have a really long wait time for titles that are popular and have high demand. And then we are anticipating growth in our Link Plus service this year. The volume has been trending upwards anyway, and in addition, there are 10 new libraries that are expected to come on to the Link Plus service this next year. We'll be joining the system, so that means it's good for our patrons because even more materials will be available for them to borrow and check out, but it also means we'll be lending out more and just having more transactions in general to handle. And then this image on the right, Palace Project app. So expanding our ebook collection by offering more titles is a goal that we have. And this is a new mobile app called the Palace Project that's envisioned to be sort of an all-in-one platform or all-in-one app that you can go to for ebooks and e-audiobook needs. So right now we have several disparate apps and patrons have preferences on which one they like, or some of them use, multiple ones. So the goal with Palace is to eventually have one place that everyone can go to, regardless of the platform that title is originating from. So this app is in development right now. It's continuing to be worked on. We have offered it to patrons. You could download it today. It's free mobile app. And we've loaded it with ebooks that the state library has been providing for free to all California public libraries. And we'll be applying for grant funds this next year to the state library that they've indicated will become available opportunities for purchasing even more ebooks that can be available on the Palace app. Okay, so for our budget slide here, again, we have 20 staff, no change from right now, about $2,123,000 in the budget, and it does reflect that slight decrease I mentioned over last fiscal year due to the one position that got reallocated from collections to delivery. For places, as other divisions have mentioned, we don't have any capital, so that's $0 for us. We do contribute to branch refresh projects and capital projects by weighting and right-sizing the collections as branches close for refresh and then they're reopened. So we make sure we have a current and refreshed collection when they do reopen. And then for resources, as you can see, this is the bulk of our budget. So for next fiscal year, it's about $4,232,000 to be spent on the collection that directly serves the public and includes the books, media, subscriptions, databases, and e-resources that we have. Compared to this fiscal year, this looks like about a $100,000 increase. So I just wanted to explain that a little bit. That net decrease reflects a one-time amount of $130,000 that was rebudgeted from last fiscal year, and an increase of about $35,000 to offset the increases that we continue to see in digital titles that we're purchasing. Okay, reimagining plan and measure Y. So one of the goals in the reimagining plan is to foster racial equity, social justice, and inclusion for everyone. As part of our work and contribution and collections to becoming an anti-racist organization, we have set a goal of increasing the diversity of the collection to 30%, meaning 30% of our overall collection would be titles that are categorized as diverse according to the tool that we use to track these metrics, which is a software called Collection HQ. We'll also be expanding our digital collections in a couple different ways.
Good afternoon, it's time for First Chapter Book Club, grades 1 through 3. We're meeting in the conference room next door to the book club. Once again, First Chapter Book Club.
I'm sorry, Jamie, that was supposed to be turned off. I apologize to you all.
Oh, my God. No worries. It's kind of appropriate. Right, so back to expanding our digital collections. The Hearing Queer Project is one example of this. We will be adding the submissions from the Hearing Queer Project, as well as approximately 5,000 local photos that we're going to be digitizing. this next year. If you're not familiar with Here and Queer, it's an effort to collect submissions from the community, digital submissions, regarding their personal stories and experiences of queer culture in Sonoma County. Once the photos and the Here and Queer submissions are digitized, they will be added to our digital collections site and available for everyone to see. We're planning to implement an archives management system for improved access and discoverability of our archival materials. This new system will make it easier to track the inventory and the location. This was really important when we relocated the archives collection a couple years ago. We did a complete inventory process at that time as all the locations changed. The new system is also going to come with a portal that the public can use, similar to our catalog that we have now, but it will be sort of a catalog for just our historical materials and archival materials. And then I did want to mention with this that we recently were awarded the Sonoma County Historical Records Commission 2022 Collections and Archives Award for the library's efforts in relocating those materials last year to bring it away from the fire zone area that it was in, and also for our ongoing efforts to just improve access and discoverability for the archival materials. And then for Measure Y, essentially, this provision in Measure Y was written to maintain book material and digital collections. So we will be continuing to keep our promise to the voters who passed Measure Y by continuing to buy these materials. Approximately 1/3 of our materials budget is coming from Measure Y funds. So we'll continue to purchase a broad and balanced collection as we have done, and I put on this slide the figures from 2022 of how many physical items we purchased, over 80,000, and how many digital titles, ebook and e-audiobook titles we purchased last year, over 114,000. And that wraps up my presentation. Thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Jimmy. Not to nitpick, but you just said a moment ago about 1/3 of, why is it not 40%?
It is. It's the 60-40 split.
Oh, it is, okay.
The thing that offsets it a little bit is we also have gift funds that we're spending.
Okay, but it is following the allocation guidelines.
It is,
okay,
with every invoice.
You mentioned the 4-to-1 ratio,
yes.
And I'm going to ask a very specific question. I do all of my reading on e-audio books that I get from Libby. So whenever I request a book that's not currently available, it tells me right away, there's X copies in circulation, and you are number 9 or whatever. Do you and your team get automated information that aggregates this on some real-time basis, so you know what the whole situation is and how many people are waiting on all the books in our system?
Yeah, I can explain the process. We do get automated reports that we've established every 2 weeks. So every 2 weeks, the collection development staff are reviewing any titles in any format that exceed that 4-to-1 ratio, and they're buying more copies to bring it back to the 4-to-1 ratio. So that includes Libby, our physical materials, across all of our platforms. We also can go in and run those reports ourselves anytime we want manually, but we have them automatically set up to be reviewed every 2 weeks.
Okay, and this next question I feel like is maybe outside the scope of this discussion, you can just tell me, but given the fact that we've seen and continue to see such growth in the borrowing of digital materials, it's really distressing to hear about the pricing discrepancy. I realize that as one library system, we have no leverage in this situation whatsoever. I'm wondering if you could just talk briefly about what's happening big picture to try to negotiate better arrangements for digital materials, because
Sure.
as the proportion of borrowing continues to shift, that's gonna raise our costs.
Yes, thank you for calling attention to that important issue. We are aware of it, and there are some states that are currently working on state legislation around this. So far, they have not seen a lot of success, but there are some legislators that are putting forward state legislation to address the rising cost of library digital titles. I'm not aware of anything at the national level yet that is going forward. Individual libraries are concerned about this. They are getting together to talk about it and to try to lobby for change. We are a little bit at the whim of the publishers, unfortunately. It's a marketplace that they are capitalizing on, and libraries are not getting a good end of the deal. The Urban Libraries Council that the Sonoma County Library is a member of is launching an e-content team, which Erica made me aware of recently, and I'm going to be joining. And so that's another group that is going to start to come together. It includes staff at different libraries across the country to try to see what we can do collectively on this issue.
Thank you, Jamie. You and your team do a great job keeping our collections vital and up to date and everything. Really appreciate that. 11 plus too is an extra. Three quick things. One, is it true, I think, that we still do twice as many checkouts in paper as digital? Some portion.
Yes. Yes.
And two, you said Hoopla, Canopy, and what was the third one?
Libby by Overdrive.
And then my last question is Sonoma Media Investments. I didn't know about that. Could you tell us how much their donation was and exactly what we do with? Are they donating like old photography from the newspapers, or what is it that they're doing?
They are photo negatives primarily, so numerous boxes of photo negatives across several decades. And again, we've accepted the donation, we've taken it in, we have not done anything with it yet. It will need a lot of attention before none of it's digitized, none of it's cataloged, none of it's processed yet.
How much did they give us? You said they made a donation.
They made a donation of the materials. It was not a financial donation.
Oh,
they took a tax deduction.
Yeah.
Any other questions? I have a question. And this may be also on the subject specifically, but we did away with fines, and I've heard wonderful things in most of the country, and I just wanted to make sure that how is it going here? How is it? Are people bringing back the books mostly on time?
Well, as you know, we have some safeguards in place, so people, items automatically renew if they don't have holds or other people waiting for them. Things can stay overdue a couple of weeks before patrons are, a charge is added to their account to say the library now considers this item lost. So patrons that might choose to keep things overdue, they can only do that for so long before they're going to be penalized, and there'll be blocks on their account. I don't know today the answer to. We could run some reports and get further information on
we might be curious
materials that are coming back later.
But I think by and large, it's probably an excellent thing to do at the time. We just have to remind people to bring them back. And then also, this is a little bit off base, but we all took a tour of where the archives were before and were horrified. It would be perhaps nice for us to take a tour of the new archive. But again, nothing immediate, and it doesn't have to do with budget necessarily, but we want to see this award winning.
Yeah, absolutely. We'd love to organize that.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Jamie, and thank you.
Right.
You have been director, you've been co-director, you've been deputy director. We appreciate all of your work and all of your staff.
Thank you. So the next presentation will be on community engagement, and Kathy Deweese and Alita Dimas will be presenting.
If I can get this to the right position. How's that? Okay. Good afternoon, Chair Doyle, Commissioners, Director Spo. I'm Kathy Deweese. I'm the Youth Services Administrator, and I'm joined by my colleague, Alita Dimas. Today, we will share information about the proposed new Community Engagement Division, including highlighting the work we've been doing so far in public services, as well as sharing a preview of the expanded services the new division will be able to offer in the coming fiscal year. And thank you to Director Spo for doing an able job of introducing this topic earlier in the presentation. And I have control of this thing, okay. There we go. The new Community Engagement Division will continue to work closely in tandem with public services. The division will provide direction, mentoring, and support to system-wide staff in developing services, educational programming, and enrichment, and we will also coordinate system-wide outreach opportunities. All the diverse kinds of education within the library umbrella. The division will comprise 12 employees across admin, adult literacy, events, education, and outreach, and we will offer direct service to the community through educational initiatives like adult literacy, lunch at the library, student one card, and summer reading. We will also offer indirect service to the community through training, mentoring, and support of frontline branch staff. Very soon, our colleagues in public services will be sharing some of this year's accomplishments, which really, right, this year we're together. So we're one division this year, and so a lot of our stuff is all together. But I will also share some highlights of how our staff have been working to tailor our events, programs, and initiatives to the key concepts of the Reimagining Plan. We continue offering events and services supporting youth and adult literacies, and we've expanded Spanish language and inclusive programming to be more supportive of all parts of our community. Career Online High School is one of our high-impact educational initiatives. I see up there, this picture is from last year, the May 2022 first annual, we hope, graduation ceremony. Our 2023 graduation ceremony, you may have gotten a save the date, went out I think this week, and it's May 20th coming up, and we have at least 2 wonderful graduates. Research shows that people without a high school diploma are twice as likely to live in poverty, so educating these adults is critical to mitigating poverty in our community. And so far, our Career Online High School program has helped more than 28 adult students to on the road to a diploma, so it's a very high impact program. Another accomplishment this year is the creation of sensory kits, which is a service designed to support people with disabilities. Sensory kits include tools and resources designed to help patrons relieve stress and decrease overstimulation. And it's a box in the branch that anyone can come up and ask to use. One branch shared a comment from a patron who was returning some noise-canceling headphones and who said, "I don't know how these came to be in the library, but as a disabled person, I just want to say thank you for this." And they left the library weeping. So that's, this is a service that, again, public services and community engagement working together to roll out services to the community. What's new this year? So with the proposed new division, there are 2 new positions to be created, as Erica mentioned earlier, the Community Engagement Division Manager and the Teen Services Administrator. And then to support our charge of education, I guess that's not the later slide? What's this slide? Okay, sorry. I guess so, that's this slide. Much of our community engagement budget is in services and supplies, which we call resources in this presentation. And the resources budget for community engagement funds the robust slate of educational events as prioritized by the Measure Y Sales Tax Initiative. A few examples of programs funded by our budget include ESL classes, teen civic engagement workshops, and virtual early literacy through Dial a Story platform. These 3 programs embody the kind of equity programming that we do to be consistent with the reimagining plan. Beyond education and programming expenses, our budget includes staffing for 10 existing program positions that were moved from public services to community engagement, and then 2 new positions. Most of these are located at RPHQ and also in the literacy department at Central. We also budget for staff training and extra help. Our places are primarily out and about in the community. We don't have capital expenses, but our division supports mobile and outreach library services, including the Bibliobus and a new mobile outreach van, which is to be purchased with grant funds for that grant that we were talking about earlier. We are also a division that brings in revenue. The adult literacy program regularly receives between $40,000 to $80,000 each year from state literacy grants. And this year we're excited to share that we've been awarded, again, we mentioned this earlier, a $292,000 grant to provide library services to combat food insecurity through the Lunch at the Library program. And another grant that was $20,000 for parks programming. Oh, that's, now I will cede the microphone to my colleague, Alita. Thank you.
I'm trying to readjust here. Can you hear me? All right. Good afternoon, commissioners. Thank you. My name is Alita, and I'm the Adult Services Administrator here at Sonoma County Library. In the coming year, by reorganizing into a community engagement division and hiring a division manager to oversee education and engagement activities, we will support equity of service across the county and high-impact patron engagement for all ages. Creating a teen services administrator position, as recommended in the 2023 staffing study, will mirror the adult and children's administrator positions, and will allow us to focus on the unique needs of adolescents. It will support reimagining plan goals of empowering youth, offering high-quality mentoring and experiences, increasing teen services, and supporting system-wide outreach. As an example, teen volunteerism provides youth development opportunities and real-world work experience. This position will take a leadership role in coordinating volunteers and teen interns at the system-wide level. We have recently completed an MOU to co-fund a juvenile justice librarian located at Juvenile Hall. In the new year, we look forward to filling this position and developing library services to this underserved population. As Kathy mentioned, our resources budget pays for in-person and virtual programs and events, with 2,500 in-person events already hosted in just the first 6 months of this fiscal year. The staffing of the Community Engagement Division will allow us to expand the reach and quality of in-person events in the new fiscal year, offering opportunities for our community to gather in person and connect, supports community resiliency and lifelong learning. Community engagement will focus efforts in the Measure Y areas of empowering youth development and lifelong learning. The work of the Community Engagement Division would not be possible without the support of Measure Y. Just a few of the services Measure Y supports include Bibliobus visits to underserved areas of our community, educational and cultural workshops that represent the diversity of our community, collaborations with local social services and nonprofit organizations to provide citizenship, health education, tax help, legal assistance, and more. The photo you see is of one of our adult literacy students who, after a year of studying with his volunteer tutor, passed the US citizenship exam. This is just one example of how library services change the lives of our community members, one person at a time. The Community Engagement Division will provide opportunities for all community members to learn, contribute, and interact through events and programs, large and small, that meet the needs of a broad section of our community. I would like to end this presentation with an excerpt from a letter one of our Sonoma County Library adult literacy students wrote us in gratitude. She wrote, "Before joining the program, I felt inadequate, stuck, silenced, helpless, and unequal. Worst of all, I was not able to express myself properly. In the 6 months, the knowledge I have gained in all areas in which I needed improvement is just amazing. I currently feel thankful, hopeful, happy, and excited. My self-esteem is much better. I feel capable and blessed and very excited for the future." Are there questions for us?
I just want to compliment you on the program. Sorry, I just want to compliment you on reaching out to the juvenile detention centers. I wouldn't have thought of that, and that's a population of community services.
Thank you.
It would be wonderful if you could, now that COVID is over, mostly, commissioners, we believe, would probably be delighted to help come to some of the events or explore broadening the reach. So don't forget us. And I would say, Mr. Holly, don't forget the commission also when you're out talking to the communities as well. And then another thought that I had, as you have the very interesting conversations and as you bring people together, it might be interesting to talk about some of the things that have been on the mind of some library advocates and librarians. You know, what kinds of, talk about the diversity of our collections, racial, gender, all that sort of thing, so we can have those conversations in our community so that people aren't yelling at school board meetings and library commission meetings and that sort of thing. So and the commission would be delighted to help you have those conversations as well.
Thank you.
Commissioner
I was going to add one response to your comment there, Deborah. I know in the commission packet each month we list a few, like 5 to 6 upcoming events. To be honest, we handpick those are things we think that you'll be interested in, or that are signature events that we think that you would be welcome to come. Of course, you would be welcome to come to any of the events, but if you would like more concrete invitations, we can work on it.
I mean, we'd be delighted to show up and say hello and greet the crowd, especially as we look at a possible renewal of a tax measure. So,
Really enjoyed the presentation, very much support what you're proposing to do. In the packet, is there like a paragraph that kind of describes the rationale and mission? It felt like there was, I just couldn't find it.
It's in the transmittal memo. Yeah, it's in the very first document.
Got it, yes, okay, thank you very much. Yeah, I thought I'd seen it, I just couldn't remember where. Yeah, great, thank you.
Thank you so much. It's gonna be fun out there.
Thank you. And with no further ado, we will introduce our awesome, amazing public services coworkers.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners, Director Thibault. I'm Sarah Vantries, Public Services Division Manager, and I'm joined by my colleague, Division Manager Barbara Mays. And today we'll highlight the work of the Public Services Division and its impacts in the community. We'll share a preview of our goals for the coming fiscal year. Public Services, as you know, offers direct service to the community at 15 different locations. That includes Central Santa Rosa Library, 11 regional libraries, 2 community libraries in our rural West County area, as well as 3 special collections, the Wine Library, the Petaluma History Room, and the Sonoma County History and Genealogy Library. And as noted, through this fiscal year, Public Services has also coordinated the all ages events, outreach programs, volunteers, educational initiatives, adult literacy, the Bibliobus, and our other mobile and outreach services. To accomplish this impact, Public Services has over 200 staff and that spans more than 20 classifications. In addition to the work that Barbara and I do, we also want to acknowledge our entire public services management team, which includes Kathy and Alita. Also, Anna Daw is our chair of our team, the Northwest branch manager, and our former interim youth services administrator, who also contributed to this budget work, as well as 16 other library leaders at our library headquarters, literacy, and branches. This fiscal year's highlight, of course, has been adding Sunday service at our regional libraries. You've heard about this over and over. We appreciate the work of all of the divisions to bring this to fruition this year. Because of the library's work, Sonoma County residents can now visit their library 7 days a week in 12 community locations. This year as well, we've doubled the Bibliobus outreach, well-staffed, out on the road twice as often this year as last, reaching new users in new places and new ways. We've also returned to significant in-person programming, as you just heard. The stats that Alita referenced represent 4 times the amount of in-person programming compared to the previous year. We know that offering opportunities for our community to gather in person is an important element of developing community resiliency, also empowering youth development and lifelong learning. Finally, this year, Public Services funded a portion of the cost of a threat assessment at all library locations. Our facilities manager and safety team are now using that crucial information to help develop safety plans for our branches that will protect the well-being of our staff and users, and that's in the context of our evolving community needs.
Hello, thank you, Sarah, for that introduction. I'm Barbara Mays, Division Manager for Public Services, and it's a pleasure to present to you all here today. In looking to the future of our staffing, we are implementing recommendations from the 2023 staffing study, which was jointly conducted by the library's union and library administration. The recommendations balance efficiencies with the personal, human service that meets our library's mission. Here you will see the reopening of the Guerneville Regional Library from last year. This was said about the Guerneville refresh. Feels good that the library is showing it cares about its residents. In the near future, we will be working with our teams on more library refreshes. In planning for these spaces, we are also adding imperative additions to our other libraries. One such example are library study pods. These fixtures will allow for a small meeting space for 2 to 4 people who will need a quiet place in the library to join a virtual meeting, hold a study group, or simply read a book. We are also enhancing our libraries with public artwork by collaborating with countywide art institutions and working with facilities to install art hanging equipment at every library. You will also start to see murals at some of our locations soon, starting with the Guerneville Library, who is collaborating with local school children, grades 4 through 6, and River Arts local artists. For resources, our exciting news here will be that we will acquire a third-party service that will provide interpretation help via telephone to our library staff communicating with patrons that speak a language other than English. For the next fiscal year, I am sure you will notice the majority of our budget is people. The Public Services Division has the largest amount of staff in the library system, with over 20% of them now receiving bilingual pay. I know that I speak for Sarah and myself in saying that we are humbled and awed on a daily basis by the Public Services staff and what they do for our communities. We are excited to see the next chapter for Public Services and Community Engagement as 2 separate divisions, and this is where you can see the difference in staffing from last year's budget. This presentation consists of staff ideas, their initiatives, and their recommendations that make our library accessible and relevant to the residents of Sonoma County. Beyond people, our budget encompasses services and supplies for the library that includes staff training and conference attendance. Staff training and development is crucial to the success of the library in supporting a wide range of diversities and innovating new ideas to meet the ever-changing needs of our residents. Our operations
operational pillars for meeting the Measure Y initiative are improving access to local libraries and empowering youth development and lifelong learning. In improving access, we added 7-day library service with more staff so that working individuals, families, and seniors are able to come to their library on either weekend day after a long week. For empowering youth development and lifelong learning, we maintain and create children and teen programs, book clubs, and services. We hold story times for the ages of 0 to 5, create opportunities for teen volunteers and internships, as well as a host of other educational classes all year long. We are one of the only free resources that provide quality early literacy experiences for young children and families. We have story times at all of our libraries that help children to learn, sing, read, and play with their adults. This is Miss California, Catherine Liang, who was born in Windsor, visiting and participating with families at a Windsor Library story time. We worked with Miss Liang to read to children about courage and confidence with the books I Am, Affirmations of Resilience, and This Little Trailblazer. From the Reimagining Plan, Public Services demonstrates opportunity, equity, and resilience. We strengthen community partnerships for collaborative services, build community connections through outreach, and offer bilingual and culturally competent services and resources. We send our staff to conferences as a commitment to retain staff, reinforce lifelong learning, and encourage new opportunities for growth. Recently, some of our staff were able to attend the Joint Council of Librarians of Color conference. Here's a quote from one of our library leaders about the conference. Overall, JCLC was an incredible conference. I highly recommend sending Sonoma County Library employees to future JCLC conferences. Administrators, regardless of racial background, should also consider attending this conference in the future, as successful and meaningful EDI work requires support and advocacy at all levels of libraries. We have talked about many of our programs and services that fulfill competencies of the Reimagining Plan. I would like to highlight our Here and Queer project that encompasses all of these things. In fact, the Sonoma County Library is being honored in this year's Pride Parade for outstanding support to the LGBTQIA+ community. The Here and Queer project collects archives and amplifies stories and histories from LGBTQIA+ communities in Sonoma County. They are creating partnerships, going to outreach events, and building connections that result in events like the LGBTQIA+ History Month celebration and timeline reception that was held at the Central Library. Through this work, we are striving to be culturally competent and inclusive and ensuring that everyone is welcome at the library. I would like to end this presentation with a quote from a patron of the Rincon Valley Library. The Sonoma County Library System is an excellent example of government at its best. I've always found your staff courteous, knowledgeable, eager to assist, and in all ways most positive. Keep up with the extraordinarily fine service you supply. Thank you. Are there any questions?
I'm not sure if either of you are going to have the answer to this, but in the past, we had the Biblio bus, which we tried out. We had it for about a year. There was talk about possibly getting a full-size bus to have regular scheduled stops out in West County. There's also talk today about having Biblio boxes at other places in the county. How is that? I don't see anything in this budget for that. How is that coming? What's the thought process on that? What's the timeline on that? Is there anything there?
So in the public services budget, you wouldn't see Bibliobus. It would be in the community engagement, but I'll let Erica talk more about that.
So one of the reasons, this last year, we kind of hit our capacity for the Bibliobus because of staffing. So we were able to hire additional staff. We hired our outreach librarian, and that helped. But anytime we get another vehicle, then we have to add additional staff to be able to support that. And we're kind of getting close to the point where adding additional staff is going to be increasingly difficult. So what we're, and this is something that Mike and I have been talking about, is exploring the idea of kiosks, putting in these either biblioboxes or vending machines in more remote areas, because that is, it's something that we were working with various vendors. They have partnerships. There's a company that is partnering with a grocery store in Texas to provide this kind of like a red box at the grocery store. Instead, there's a book kiosk, so that you can get the internet service so that you can check out the materials. But we don't have a bibliobus in the budget for next year. But what we will have, and you will be learning about this next week, is we are purchasing a van through grant funds that will enable us to do some other outreach. Part of the problem with the bibliobus is that some of the more remote areas are difficult to navigate with the bibliobus because it's too big and those roads are really narrow. So getting a van that's a little more mobile, a little more will be better to use. So, that's kind of where we're, does that answer your question?
You're still in planning.
Right. Yeah.
It's not in this fiscal year.
Yeah, Commissioner Hauser, I had a couple of things about the current bibliobus outreach, and my colleagues want to jump up here. You're welcome as well. We do have a mix of kinds of stops and outreach that we're using the bibliobus for. So that does include standalone events, big events, as well as some routine stops. And now that we have the full-time staff member on board, that's allowing us to explore some new opportunities for regular service in particular communities that haven't been reached before. And we're also looking at some options that we may present to you in an update of the circulation policy that would allow other agencies to better serve residents who aren't able to easily get to the library. So that element of what you're talking about, I would say, is in progress as well through our existing resources and our existing staffing.
Thank you. Any questions? I was glad that you talked about going to conferences, and I look forward to hearing staff of Sonoma County bragging about the things that you've been doing at some of those conferences, because it's about time. You've only been such wonderful work.
We really have wonderful public services staff, and I know that you'll be hearing more about the JCLC conference coming up shortly.
Thank you.
And with that, we are turning it back to Myrna.
I'll stand up here because of the microphone, just to answer any other questions that the commissioners may have. We covered all the information.
You can exhaust
Very thorough.
And I will say that a lot of the things that we've talked about, are kind of previews, and you will be seeing at future commission meetings these grants and these other things that we are that we've been talking about a little bit.
So in just to see the next steps, we have a budget timeline. We have reserved May 3rd, if there were any open items that we could bring back to the commission on May 3rd at your regular meeting. And then on June 7th, the budget adoption is scheduled for your regular meeting.
So open item, facilities plan priority thing, I suppose request that. And then I just had a couple of questions just on the line items of the budget. I noticed a big reduction in janitorial services and supplies, and wondered about that. Does that have to do with COVID? Are we changing our COVID cleanings or?
So as you can see, over the last 2 years, we have had savings or underspending in a few line items. And it's line items under services and supplies, and that is one of them. I don't think we just analyzed that line item specifically to reflect actual costs. So that was one area that we were able to have some savings this year.
And then I noticed an additional 100,000 in consulting and 250,000 contract services. I wonder if you give us a little idea about this, especially the contract services.
Under which, up on,
contract services.
oh, but what page is that?
28. It's probably 518.
Sure, but I'm wondering if you're looking at this.
Somebody requested budget workshop, page 28 or
28. Contracts and, so this is the overall agency level. So yes, I can explain in terms of, you said consultants or contracts?
Well, the ones I had 5.220 consulting services, up 100,000, and 51803 other contract services.
Sure.
250.
So under and it could be a combination of different divisions. Primarily under executive services, we increased the capacity of bringing in new grant funding. So that increased also for the community survey. So those are both under each of those accounts, consultants and other contracts.
And then the project manager.
So that's under capital. Yeah.
We're not going to spend 250,000 community survey. What was the other one?
So there's a community, we're looking at grant funding and hiring additional assistance to increase our grant revenue. So that is probably under consultants, a grant consulting company. And also, and I think also in that under consulting is the community survey. So combined, you can see that $100,000 increase. The other contracts, I know IT increased its contracting. I don't know the specifics though. Mike, do you recall?
CRC Dynamics moved back into that line, which bumped that up.
CRC Dynamics?
That's the big jump, right? It was paid from a different budget, so we made sure to put that back in.
So he just transferred the CRC Dynamics contract from, it was under a different account.
I like the way it's all presented, but when we do see it division by division, we can't tell really it's kind of overall questions. We see big changes in the individual categories. So that's what I'm asking.
Oh yeah, that's fine. If you have any other questions at any time, you can reach out to me. Commissioner Ingbar.
Legal fees were taken out of HR and put in executive services.
Commissioner Engbar has his hand raised.
Commissioner Engbar.
You're on mute, Fred. Fred, you're on mute.
We can't hear you.
No.
There we go. I was wondering about the special department expense, which is on page 31, 161. What are the special department expenses? What fits into that category?
Special department expenses, we put the, this is on page 31, that's executive services, and that's where we funded the new innovation fund.
Okay, and also, I'm sorry, but my notes are written not that well. It also shows up on page 28 of 161. it shows from the adjusted budget, 701,821. Then it goes from that to this, in this budget, 742,632.
That's correct. So this is the overall agency-wide allocation, and that's a net. So there is an increase of $100,000 due to the Innovation Fund, and there may be some decreases among all the different divisions. So there's a net increase overall at the agency level of $42,000.
Well, following up on what Barbara, Commissioner McKenzie brought up, I'm wondering if we could get a better breakdown or some identification of what the, and I know I asked this last year, what the consulting services, what that goes to, maybe a summary of the agencies or contractors that we're paying under that, and similarly under the other contract services, the same thing of who are we paying and for what services are we paying for under that. And then I'd like to see some examples of what these special department expenses are. Because they seem, all three of those seem very open, and that we have, as the commission, really not any idea about what's that money's being used.
Sure. I will provide a report on this. On a monthly basis, there are some reports that are presented to the Finance Committee in terms of some of these breakdowns, but I'll certainly provide that to you as a response, as a question to this budget workshop.
And I had another question about the, let me see if I can find it here. Oh, about the 5-year financial plan. I know you're going to be making a presentation, a more thorough presentation later on, but I've raised this before. I think having a positive projection of what the future might be like is good, but I'd like to have a sense of what our planning is going to be if things go south. If for example, to start thinking about it, for example, the Measure Y renewal, the proposal, whatever the new measure is going to be called, doesn't get improved. What kind of an impact will that have on our budget? And maybe a couple scenarios like that, just to have a sense of both sides, like the positive side about if everything keeps going well and we get refunded, but then on the negative side, if we end up having a problem, that we could start planning for the problems as well as for the good news that we get, and we have been getting the past few years.
Okay. Yes.
Pass the budget. Did you want that before we pass the budget?
I think to I don't think before we do the budget meeting in June it'd be nice, but I think to get something like that in place, because I think I feel not very comfortable of only planning about things if everything is rosy, and things might not be.
Currently, the plan is to present the 5-year forecast to the Finance Committee in May.
That would be good. Thank you.
Okay.
Anybody else?
This is not a question, excuse me, no COVID, I had a cold about a week ago, this is long gone. I'm just really impressed. I'm impressed by all the commissioners and especially by Erica and Mira and all the heads of the, what's it called, departments, areas. Like, wow, this is a great presentation. I spent a couple hours this morning going over it. I was already impressed. Now to hear the presentations, I'm even more impressed. It's amazing and you're doing an incredible job.
Thank you.
Just as another new commissioner, I couldn't agree more, and this served not only as an overview of the budget, but an introduction to all the other departments and all the duties. So thank you all so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Let's see, let's just. I believe we're at the date and time of next meeting. Which is going to be our regular meeting. Let's give this guy a hand. Thank you very much. Commissioner, Neymar, your hand is up.
Really good. Still up.
Okay. Then
Oh, I'm sorry, didn't lower that. I should.
There. Commissioner Adams, you're okay? Wave. Okay. Thank you very much. Commissioner.
Can we think about for next week, what might work better in terms of everybody being able to hear each other? Because it's awkward to talk there and then you guys can't hear. So I don't know, but I don't have an idea. But it's awkward.
We could move the two legs apart and bring the speakers both in person in.
Oh, yeah, in the middle.
So that we're a little closer.
Round table.
Well, also.
Well, you build that for next month.
I think because we tend to want to speak to the person that we're talking to. They can hear you when they're standing there. So if you turn around and speak to most of the crowd, I think we will hear you, and the mics will pick it up, and the people who are on Zoom, they won't hear you. They will hear you anyway. So we can try it, but I don't think they're going to relight the room. Yes, but I don't think Barbara thought that was effective. Okay, meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.